Chapter 76. This is the power of the soul of Senior Shenbing. When Luo Qinghuan heard Su Yi's words, he looked at the golden aura in his hand and asked, with this ray of soul power, can we revive Senior Shenbing? Perhaps. Su Yi shook his head. He was not sure about the resurrection of the great emperor, but it was better than just watching his old friend die for him. The girl was silent for a moment. Then she clenched her fists, her pretty face full of seriousness. All right. Girl Luo, let's go. Su Yi collected this strand of soul power, and then his dark soul returned to Luo Qinghuan's body and spoke to him. The secret realm team gained a lot. Luo Qinghuan not only obtained the semi-divine weapon Long Yuan sword, but also broke through to the creation realm. He also absorbed his own origin, breaking through the great power realm and mastered the law of death. The most important thing is, I also learned about the sacrifices made by everyone in Heavenly Palace for me. The girl nodded, put away the half-divine weapon Long Yuan sword, and turned to leave. Outside the secret realm of the magic weapon, the monks from various forces remained where they were and did not leave. It was obvious that they also wanted to see what kind of charm the girl from the Swanyan Holy Church who was recognized by the great Emperor of Divine Weapons was like. After all, countless prodigy have entered the secret realm over the past 10,000 years, but none of them has been recognized. It is enough to see the horror of the girl talent. Boom! Just at this moment, the sound of a sword suddenly resounded through the sky. What's going on? When everyone heard the sound, they looked and saw that the sword that was originally standing here, 100 feet long and reaching into the sky, suddenly made a sword sound and then turned into countless golden lights and dissipated. This is the last remnant of the great emperor's soul has also dissipated. It seems that the junior sister of Swanyan Holy Sect has realized the inheritance of the divine weapon Great Emperor. Everyone was talking about it. At the same time, as the golden light dissipated, a girl in a white dress appeared in front of everyone. Qinghuan girl. When the graceful figure in white dress appeared, Supreme Elder Xianming immediately looked over there, with a hint of joy in his eyes. Is this woman Luo Qinghuan? She is so beautiful that she is truly the most beautiful woman in the world. I never thought that Swanyan Holy Church would have such an outstanding daughter. Sister Luo is not only beautiful, but also very powerful. I really want to eat Sister Luo's soft rice. Hehe, I don't know who will get the advantage in the future. When they saw the girl in the white dress, all the powerful people present looked over, were stunned, and were immediately stunned by the girl's beautiful face. Qinghuan girl, this way. The Xianming Supreme Elder waved his hand. When the girl came over, he was stunned. Hey! Where is Han Feng? He didn't see Han Feng at first and thought that Han Feng stayed in the secret realm waiting for Luo Qinghuan. Senior brother Han Feng. Hearing this, Luo Qinghuan turned his head slightly and said, Senior brother Han Feng forced himself to comprehend Saint Weapon, but was killed by Saint Weapon's backlash. What? Hearing this, Xianming Grand Elder's brows knitted together, and he finally sighed, although I knew that the boy had a bad character and would get into trouble sooner or later, I didn't expect it to be so sudden. That's all. This is his fate. After a sigh. Immediately, the Xianming Supreme Elder looked at Luo Qinghuan and asked seriously. Qinghuan girl, have you really realized the inheritance of the great emperor? As soon as these words came out, the powerful men from the surrounding forces immediately looked over. The girl nodded slightly, admitting it. After all, Senior Shenbing had already said this, so there was no need for her to deny it. But the great emperor's inheritance of the divine weapon is nothing else except the half-divine weapon Long Yuan sword and its weapon meaning. He did not choose to leave the forging skills to future generations. According to the saying of Stinky Su Yat, although everyone says that the great emperor's forging skills are enough to surpass the entire 9 realms, he is the undisputed #1 forger. But Senior Shenbing doesn't think so. He just felt that his forging skills were not refined. If he was really the undisputed #1, he would not have failed to forge the Dragon Abyss sword and hand it over to Su before Su entered the ancient path to becoming a god. So, the great emperor did not leave the forging technique to future generations. The original words of the great emperor are, if I leave the art of forging to future generations, they will think that this is the pinnacle of forging and will only take my forging skills as their goal, and will not think about surpassing my forging skills. Yes. She actually got hold of it. Doesn't that mean that all the prodigy who have entered the secret realm over the past 10,000 years are inferior to a little girl? Hearing this, the powerful men from various forces couldn't help but gasp, and looked at Luo Qinghuan with shining eyes. If I make good friends with the girl now, wouldn't I be able to ask her to help me forge magic weapons in the future? Little girl, why don't you show us the inheritance that the great emperor gave you? It will open our eyes. I happen to have a chamber pot here. If you really have mastered the forging inheritance of the great emperor, why don't you forge this chamber pot into a divine weapon as well? At this moment, a strong leader of a first-rate force couldn't help but ask. Yeah. We also want to see the forging of the great emperor's divine weapon. As soon as these words came out, the people around also echoed. The Supreme Elder Xianming frowned, but was reluctant to help Qinghuan refuse. After all, the powerful forces who spoke up were all first-rate forces, and it would be difficult for their Xuanyan holy sect to offend them. When the eyes of the people around her fell on her, Luo Qinghuan frowned slightly, and even the expression on her pretty face became cold. Oh! This is the first time I've seen this kind of expression on Luo girl's face. In my mind. When Suya saw the girl's expression, he immediately propped up his chin and put on an attitude of watching the show. The forging technique of Senior Shenbing is not just for you to open your eyes and have fun with, let alone forging a chamber pot. Elder, are you insulting the forging technique of Senior Shenbing? The girl raised her beautiful eyes and for the first time looked at everyone present without any nervousness. She opened her red lips slightly and spoke in a cold voice. She had seen the great emperor's regret for not being able to help Suya because his forging skills were not strong enough. I also heard from Suya. When the heavenly demon clan threatened the entire Nine Realms monks, the great emperor forged countless magical body-protecting weapons and gave them to the Nine Realms monks. In the eyes of the great emperor, his forging skills can save the world. When the girl's cold voice fell, the surroundings suddenly fell into silence. Many powerful people also came back to their senses, showing an embarrassed look on their faces. Their old faces turned red and they bowed their heads. Miss Qinghuan has some truth in what she said, but we were a little abrupt. The forging technique of the great emperor is indeed a way to save the world. In the past, he gave many monks from the heavenly demon clan divine weapons to protect themselves. Luo Qinghuan has completed a black transformation, and is rewarded with the magic weapon forging technique. Do you want to invest? Just at this moment, in Suyi's mind, the system voice suddenly sounded. Chapter 77. Divine Weapon Forging Technique. Hearing the words of the system in his mind, Suya was stunned for a moment, but soon came to his senses and chose to invest without any hesitation. The investment was successful. Luo Qinghuan has mastered the art of forging divine weapons. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the divine rank entry forging technique. Divine rank item forging technique. When forging a divine weapon, the divine weapon will have items. The host can add these items to the forged object. The items have powerful effects, such as the one sword to seal the throat item. When the Dragon Abyss sword is attached with the one sword to seal the throat item, when facing an enemy with a realm difference of no more than 3 small realms, it can be done with one sword to seal the throat. In my mind, the system sound continued to sound. Oh! Exclusive forging entry. After hearing this and seeing the detailed explanation of the system, Suyi's eyes flashed with joy. If this is attached with the invincibility attribute, then wouldn't the person holding the magic weapon with the invincibility attribute be truly invincible? Sure. As if knowing what Suya was thinking, the system replied immediately. But the premise is, this magic weapon will have an invincible entry. Although I can't actively add entries, it's still pretty good. Suya comprehended the divine rank item forging technique with satisfaction. Hey! Suya, why do I feel like something has entered my mind? At this time, Luo Qinghuan's doubtful voice sounded. Nothing. It's just that your brother Ye helped you comprehend some magic weapon forging techniques. Suya said with a chuckle. Divine weapon forging technique. Could it be Senior Shenbing's? The girl exclaimed. That's right. Suya nodded with a smile and said, Girl, practice well. Your brother Ye is still waiting for you to forge the Long Yuan sword into a real divine weapon. I will. The girl nodded, full of fighting spirit. Hey! Wrong. Then why don't you forge it yourself? Because your brother Ye is lazy. The girl pouted. Snort. Just treat them as tools. Stinky Suya. Just as the girl drew a circle and cursed the stinky Suya, the first-rate strong man who spoke first had an ugly look on his face at this moment. Because of the girl's words, he suddenly became a clown who was seeking attention. Xianming. Is this how you, the Xuanyan holy sect, teach the younger generation to talk to the elders? This is simply disrespectful to the elders. The strong man from that first-rate force looked at Supreme Elder Xianming with an ugly expression. The Xianming Supreme Elder frowned. However, before he could speak, the young girl frowned slightly and retaliated without mercy. Then this elder of the Fire Fist sect, is this how you, the Fire Fist sect, teach you to blaspheme the forging techniques of senior divine weapon? You are simply disrespectful to your elders. The girl's words were exactly what the Fire Fist sect's strong man said. It's not very lethal, but it's extremely insulting. The Fire Fist sect's strong man was immediately furious and his face turned red. You are such a brave little girl with sharp teeth. The Fire Fist sect's strong man's face changed, his aura emerged, and he looked like he was ready to take action. Seeing this, the Xianming Grand Elder took a step forward and protected Luo Qinghuan behind him. Presumptuous. Just at this moment, a middle-aged man's majestic voice suddenly sounded. Who allowed you to be disrespectful to Senior Shenbing? The next moment, as soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying imperial might suddenly fell on the Fire Fist sect's strong man. The strong man didn't even have time to scream before he was crushed into a ball of meat paste. Hiss! The great emperor, the mighty one. When seeing this scene, the surrounding forces exclaimed and their faces suddenly changed. The one who came was actually a great emperor? Who is coming? Father! Just at this moment, in the crowd, the voice of surprise from the third prince of the Wuji divine dynasty suddenly rang out. He looked over and said, Father, aren't you in seclusion? How come you suddenly appear here? Father! Hearing this, the powerful men from all the forces were stunned. There is only one person in the entire desolate sky territory who can make the third prince of the Wuji divine dynasty call him father. One of the 5 major forces, the leader of the Wuji divine dynasty, Emperor Tian. The strong men from various forces looked hurriedly, and saw a man in a golden dragon robe, with sword-like eyebrows and star-like eyes, walking in the air with great majesty. It was none other than Emperor Tian, the Lord of the Divine Dynasty. Meet the Lord of the Divine Dynasty. Meet the Lord of the Divine Dynasty. Seeing this, everyone hurriedly saluted. Even the people from the Fire Fist sect didn't dare to breathe when they saw their strong men being killed in public, and they followed suit and saluted. After all, this is a powerful great emperor. Not to mention them, even if the leader of the Fire Fist sect came, he would probably applaud and say that the kill was well done. I sensed some movement here, so I left. Tian said calmly. Then his eyes fell on the girl in the crowd. As he looked her over, his imperial power gradually emerged. You, are Luo Qinghuan? Senior Shenbing's inheritance fell into your hands. The terrifying imperial power emerged, as if to intimidate the girl. Under that terrifying feeling of oppression, even the Supreme Elder Xianming standing beside him felt the extremely terrifying pressure. Girl, let your brother Ye come. The girl frowned slightly, gritted her teeth and persisted, then she heard the words that made her feel safe. She quickly logged off, hid in the soul space, and observed secretly. Yes. This Suya upper issue. The expression in the girl's beautiful eyes changed inadvertently, she raised her eyes and looked at Tian indifferently. He actually looked directly into his eyes. Tian was stunned and shocked. He seemed not to have expected that the girl would dare to look him in the eye, and he did not see a trace of fear in the girl's eyes, which were as calm as water. It was as if the girl in front of him was also a great emperor. Or a great emperor who is even stronger than him. You are worthy of being recognized by Senior Shenbing. I am relieved to hand over the inheritance of the great emperor to you. Immediately, Tian smiled with satisfaction, put away his imperial power, and explained. 10,000 years ago, this emperor was helped by the predecessor of the divine weapon Great Emperor, and then gradually expanded this Wuji divine dynasty. Therefore, in the past 10,000 years, when the divine weapon Great Emperor fell in my Zhongzhou, this emperor quietly became the tomb keeper here. Therefore, I cannot watch Senior Shenbing's inheritance fall into the hands of mediocre people. That was just a test for you, Miss Luo. I'm sorry. As soon as these words came out, the powerful people from the surrounding forces couldn't help but gasp. Who would have thought that just now, the girl had already completed the test of the Great Emperor? How come they don't know? Of course they don't know. After all, under the pressure of the great emperor, they couldn't even raise their heads, so how could they know that the girl dared to look the great emperor in the eye? The girl nodded slightly. This emperor came here for two reasons. One is to test the successor of the great emperor, and the other is to ask a favor of the successor. Dityan said slowly again. Chapter 78. As the lord of the divine dynasty and a powerful great emperor, you actually want to ask that little girl for something. When they heard what Dityan said, the faces of the powerful people from all the forces present changed slightly. After all, who could have thought that a powerful person like the great emperor would have to ask for help from others? What is it? The girl raised her cold eyes and looked at Dityan indifferently. When he met the girl's beautiful eyes, Dityan couldn't help but be stunned. I don't know why. He actually had an illusion. It was as if the girl in front of him was the great emperor, and he was the junior. But no matter how he convinced himself that he was the great emperor, whenever he saw the girl's cold eyes again, that illusion would reappear in his mind. What happened? How could this little girl's eyes make me feel so scared? Dityan's heart trembled. When he met the girl's eyes, he felt as if there was a tall and majestic figure in black behind the girl staring at him. When you stare at Luo Yetu, your brother Yet is also staring at you. Is this how the great emperor of the divine dynasty begs for mercy? Suya had a cold look in his eyes and a hint of anger in his tone. Since when did a mere great emperor of the six tribulations dare to be so arrogant? Since you have received the kindness of Senior Shen Bing, why do you want to exert pressure on the successor of your benefactor? Isn't that a bit too inappropriate? Now he has two great emperor one-hit cards. At worst, we can explode with this divine dynasty, the great emperor. Perhaps in the hands of others, the trump card is a means to save life and should not be used unless absolutely necessary. But it's different in Suyi's hands. This thing is not a trump card to save your life, but a trump card to make others afraid. If he gets bullied, is he still the great emperor? After hearing the girl's words, Dityan was stunned. The strangest thing is, he was scolded by the girl in this way, but he didn't feel angry at all. It's like, I almost lost my temper after being told that. Now, when everyone saw this scene, they suddenly felt as if the younger generation was scolding the younger generation, and the worst thing was that this younger generation was the great Emperor Dityan of the Divine Dynasty. Suya is so cruel. Seeing this scene, the soul of the little girl in the white dress couldn't help but widen her beautiful eyes, full of admiration. It's because I didn't think it through. I hope Miss Luo will forgive me. Dityan was silent for a while before speaking apologetically. I don't know why. He always felt an inexplicable sense of fear rising in his heart. If he didn't adjust his attitude, this fear would very likely become a reality. Hiss. As soon as these words came out, the powerful people from the surrounding forces suddenly took a breath of cold air. No one expected that the Lord of the Imperial Heavenly Palace Divine Dynasty would take the initiative to apologize to a junior. Oh my goodness! The Xianming Supreme Elder beside the girl widened his eyes and looked at the girl in surprise. It's a big trough. When did Qinghuan become so tough? This is the Great Emperor. Great Emperor. Even the leader of their Swanyan holy sect was only at the peak of the Holy Lord realm. Even their leader didn't dare to speak to Emperor Tian like this, but the girl dared to directly scold the Great Emperor. The most important thing is, in front of the girl, Dityan seemed like a junior. The girl's action directly shocked the Xianming Supreme Elder for 10,000 years. I wonder what the Lord of the Divine Dynasty wants to see me about. Seeing that Dityan's attitude was quite acceptable, Suya put away the Great Emperor attack card and looked up at Dityan. That's right. Senior Shenbing once gifted our Wuji Divine Dynasty a heaven and earth creation tower for cultivation 10,000 years ago. It was used for our Divine Dynasty prodigy to cultivate, but in recent years this tower has lost its former glory. So I would like to ask Miss Luo to go to my Wuji Divine Dynasty to see if the tower can be repaired. Dityan said slowly. Heaven and Earth Creation Tower. Legend has it that the Great Emperor forged the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower for cultivation. It can absorb the most concentrated spirit chi in heaven and earth. In this tower, the speed of cultivation can be greatly improved. It turns out that this tower is in the Wuji Divine Dynasty. No wonder the prodigy from Wuji Divine Dynasty account for the majority of the prodigy list over the years. Hearing what Dityan said, the powerful people from the surrounding forces couldn't help but flash a hint of envy in their eyes. Oh. It turns out that the old man Shenbing gave this tower of creation of heaven and earth to the Wuji divine dynasty. Suya raised his eyebrows calmly. At that time, the great emperor of Shenbing excitedly built this tower, and the first person he found was him to test it. This tower can absorb the most concentrated spirit chi between heaven and earth into the tower. There are 10 floors in total. With each level you go up, the spirit chi energy will be strengthened several times. He had reached the 10th floor in just 2 steps, which was basically useless to him. However, in order to support the old man with the divine weapon, he also specially placed an opportunity on the 10th floor. I just don't know if after so many years, there is a prodigy from the Wuji divine dynasty who can step onto the 10th floor. If not, we can let Luo Yetu enter the 10th floor and take the opportunity. Tower of Creation of Heaven and Earth. You can add the term Super Speed Tower Master. Just at this moment, the system voice suddenly sounded in Su Yi's mind. Is this an entry that can be added to the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower? He was stunned for a moment. Looked over. Super Speed. Adding this entry can greatly increase the speed at which the monks in the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower absorb spirit chi. Tower Master, choose one person to become the Tower Master. All cultivators who enter the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower to practice must offer the spirit chi they have gained from their practice. The spirit chi energy gained by the Tower Master will be greatly enhanced. These 2 entries seem good, don't they? Seeing the introduction of these 2 entries, Su Yi's eyes flashed. I wonder what Miss Luo thinks. At this time, seeing that the girl had not responded yet, Ditien asked again. What's the benefit? Suya didn't rush to answer, and asked calmly. As soon as these words came out, the people around looked at the girl with great surprise, and Supreme Elder Suanming's eyes widened. What the hell? Isn't the benefit obvious? If I help Ditien repair the Tower of Creation, wouldn't I be able to gain a favor from a great emperor? That's a favor from the great emperor. Suya, isn't this a bit inappropriate? Deep in the soul. The little soul in the white dress asked weakly. She was a little afraid that Suya would push the Lord of the Divine Dynasty into a corner. No problem. Suya smiled and shook his head. The 2 communicated with each other's souls. Luo girl, our purpose is to cheat as much as possible. So what if the great emperor has more good things? The great emperor has more good things, so we should cheat him. I see. A look of sudden enlightenment appeared on the pretty face of the girl in the little white dress, and she quickly took out a small notebook to take notes. Even Ditien was stunned for a moment, but he was not angry. Instead, he admired the girl's courage. This one. He pondered for a moment before continuing. If Miss Luo can really repair the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower, I will allow you to enter my Wuji Emperor Mausoleum. Chapter 79. What? Father, how can this be allowed? The Wuji Emperor's Mausoleum is where the fallen great men of our divine dynasty have been buried for so many years. How can we allow an outsider to enter? While everyone around was still wondering what this Wuji imperial tomb was. Among the crowd, the 3rd prince of the Wuji divine dynasty, De Yun, suddenly changed his expression and hurriedly tried to persuade him. Yuner, shut up. Ditien simply glanced at the 3rd prince indifferently. Hearing this, although De Yun wanted to say something else, he moved his mouth but finally chose to shut up. The Wuji Emperor's tomb. Hearing this, Suya raised his eyebrows. Suya, where is this Wuji Emperor's mausoleum? The little soul in the white dress was stunned for a moment and asked curiously. A place full of good stuff, a place where we can get supplies. Suya said with a smile. Oh. I understand. The eyes of the little soul in the white dress were glowing as she silently checked the amount left in her large sack. What are you mumbling about? Can't understand. Sacks, incoming stock. But the prerequisite is that we can repair the Tower of Creation of Heaven and Earth forged by Senior Divine Weapon. The girl frowned slightly. Although Suya had just passed the divine weapon forging technique to her, she had not had time to comprehend it. Fine. You're cheating. Hang. Brother ya equals hang up, understand. Understand. After the girl calmed down, Suya looked at Ditien and nodded, then let's do as Senior Ditien said. After her saying, he looked at the Xianming Grand Elder and said, then Xianming Grand Elder, you should go back to Suanyan Holy Sect first. Senior Ditien and I will go to Wuji Divine Dynasty. Yes. Supreme Elder Xianming came back to his senses from his astonishment and nodded quickly, looking at the girl with a look of residual shock in his eyes. Whether it was the inheritance of the divine weapon Great Emperor, or the calmness in facing a great emperor, it was enough to prove that the girl in front of them had surpassed all the prodigies of their Swanyan holy sect. "All right. Miss Luo, please follow me." De Tian said this in a deep voice, then he waved his hand and took the girl, De Yun, and other people from the Wuji divine dynasty into the void and disappeared from everyone's sight. The Swanyan Holy Church has produced an incredible prodigy. Tisk tisk. See this scene. The surrounding forces also sighed and left one after another. Wuji divine dynasty. Located in the most prosperous Zhongzhou area in the wilderness region. Unlike the other 4 states in the desolate sky territory where there are numerous sects, Zhongzhou only has one force, that is the Wuji divine dynasty, with hundreds of millions of people and even more cultivators. Soon. The royal city of the Wuji divine dynasty. Inside the palace. As the void in the sky shattered, several figures appeared there. It's His Majesty who has returned. And the third prince. He has also returned from the secret realm. I wonder what kind of magic weapon the third prince brought back from the secret realm this time. When they saw the figures appear on the sky, a group of powerful men from the Wuji divine dynasty immediately came out to greet them and couldn't help but look at them with anticipation. And the sky. De Tian ignored everyone and just looked at Luo Qinghuan and said, "Miss Luo. The Heaven and Earth Creation Tower has been dormant for the past few days. It will probably take some time before it opens. During this time, you can stay in the palace of my divine dynasty. You can wander around the palace and the city at will, Miss Luo. If you are not familiar with the road, you can ask Dayun." Speaking of this, De Tian frowned, then changed his words, "Dayun may be a little inconvenient, then I will let my daughter take Miss Luo for a walk." "No need. Senior De Tian, I can just walk around by myself." The girl quickly shook her head and declined. Anyway, she is not alone, and she needs the stinky Suya in her body to accompany her. Yaoki. De Tian didn't say much. Miss Luo has just realized the inheritance of Senior Shen Bing. I will not disturb you. Miss Luo, please take a rest first. I will come to inform you when the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower is opened. The girl nodded her head slightly. Immediately. De Tian arranged for several maids to take the girl into the palace and to the most luxurious guest room. Hey! Who is that girl? She is so beautiful. Your Majesty is very polite to her. When seeing this scene, the powerful men of the divine dynasty were amazed at Luo Qinghuan's beauty, and at the same time, they were impressed by De Tian's polite attitude towards her, and suddenly became curious about the girl's identity. The proud daughter of Swanyan holy religion, Luo Qinghuan. De Yun explained on the side. Xuanyan holy religion. Isn't that just a first-rate force? Hearing the words of the third prince, a group of powerful men couldn't help but frown. Not to mention the prodigy of a first-rate force, even if the leader of a first-rate force came, Your Majesty wouldn't have to be so polite to her, right? Humph. She's different. De Yun snorted coldly. Although he was arrogant and looked down on prodigy, who was a first-rate force, he had to submit to the girl. After all, seeing the girl purchase 10 great saint artifacts by herself, she could feel the power of the fierce great emperor and kill the 3 demons. She's different. Because she inherited the legacy of the great emperor. De Yun said calmly. What? The inheritance of the great emperor. As soon as these words came out, a group of powerful men from the divine dynasty suddenly became a little uneasy. You know, because the lord of the divine dynasty, De Tian, is the grave keeper of the great emperor, their Wuji divine dynasty has more qualifications to enter the secret realm than the other 4 major forces. But so many years have passed. At most, you can gain a saint weapon. As for the inheritance of the magical weapon Great Emperor, forget it. Not to mention their Wuji divine dynasty, there is no prodigy in the entire desolate sky territory who can be recognized by the Great Emperor of divine weapon. But now, the third prince said that the girl who just left was recognized by the Great Emperor? Hiss. Is she crushing eternal prodigy? Third prince, what on earth is going on? The powerful men of the divine dynasty had solemn expressions and acted as if they were just watching spectators. Oh no, they asked hurriedly with solemn expressions. It's like this. Immediately, De Yun told everyone what happened in the secret realm. After listening, a group of powerful men from the divine dynasty were shocked. So, Your Majesty, you want Miss Luo to help us repair the heaven and earth creation tower. A minister frowned and said hesitantly, but Miss Luo has just mastered the inheritance of the great emperor, can she do it? She can't, but can you? Tian glanced at him indifferently. Your Majesty is joking. The minister's face changed immediately and he quickly shut up. This tower of creation of heaven and earth must be repaired as soon as possible. The 1000-year foundation of my Wuji divine dynasty cannot be destroyed in an instant. A solemn look flashed in Emperor Tian's eyes as he murmured. Chapter 80. Soon. Led by several palace maids, Luo Qinghuan came to a luxurious courtyard in the palace. It was a relatively quiet place with rich spiritual energy and would not be disturbed by anyone. It was obvious that Tian had put a lot of thought into helping the girl comprehend the inheritance of the magic weapon, the great emperor. Miss Luo, we will take our leave first. Several palace maids bowed to Luo Qinghuan before leaving. As expected of a top force, they are more generous than first-rate forces. They even have a spirit-gathering formation. Suya glanced at the courtyard and saw a small formation operating on the ground. Spiritual gathering formation. The girl was a little curious. See the rich spirit qi in the whole courtyard? It's the work of the spirit collection formation. If you are interested, when you return to Swanyan Holy Church, your brother Ye will help you make one. Suya crossed his arms and said calmly. You can. The girl was stunned. I'm not interested in learning. But there's interest in moving this one. Suya said seriously. Luo Qinghuan. All right. Girl Luo, take a good rest these few days. In the place where souls are housed, Suya stretched his body. He had just enough time to study what was in the Kunlun mirror that was repaired by the divine weapon Great Emperor. An imperial weapon that is no longer damaged. Although it is not as good as the half-divine weapon Long Yuan sword, it is still a genuine imperial weapon. The girl nodded her head slightly. He pushed open the door of the courtyard and walked in. A few days passed. When the news that the secret realm of the divine weapon ended and the inheritance of the great emperor was inherited by the girl of the Swanyan Holy Church spread throughout the desolate sky realm, it caused quite a stir in the entire desolate sky realm. Although there are many people with ill intentions who have thought about seizing the opportunity. But in the end, he was shocked by the last words of the great emperor and chose to give up. After all, the great emperor's supreme power is so great that even the great emperors of the same realm dare not provoke him easily. And in Swanyan Holy Sect, when they heard that Luo Qinghuan crushed a group of prodigy and won the recognition of the divine weapon Great Emperor, the 8 peak masters and a group of elders in Swanyan Holy Sect were shocked. They knew that Luo Qinghuan was very talented. But no one expected that he could be so powerful. And there was only Tsukihime. Although they were stunned, they were not as shocked and out of control as the other members of the Swanyan Holy Sect. After all, she knew that there was an extremely terrifying protector behind that girl. With that powerful protector and his terrifying talent, isn't it normal for him to crush all the prodigies? Only. At this moment, she was a little anxious. There is not much time left until the Divine Maiden election in the Supreme Palace of Forgetfulness. By then, Tai Shang Wangqing Palace will definitely make Luo Qinghuan the new Divine Maiden so that they can control her, and that Great Guardian will definitely not let Tai Shang Wangqing Palace succeed. So what should she choose? Why? Su Kim sighed. Be it the Supreme Forgetfulness Palace or the Great Protector, neither of them could afford to offend the Swanyan Holy Sect. If one choice is wrong, then every step will be wrong until you fall into the abyss. That's all. Wait and see first. Yuji sighed softly. However, just at this moment, an old figure appeared in the sky, and was accompanied by a huge cane hitting the ground. The Xianming Supreme Elder immediately came over with the cane. Grand Elder! You guys are back! Yuji's eyes dropped. However, only the Supreme Elder Xianming was seen, but not the girl in the white dress. Where's Qinghuan? Yuji was stunned. Reporting to the master, the Lord of the Divine Dynasty has invited Qinghuan to go to the Wuji Divine Dynasty. It is said that she is here to repair the Tower of Heaven and Earth creation left by the Great Emperor. Supreme Elder Xianming replied quickly. Wuji Divine Dynasty. A solemn look flashed across Yuji's beautiful eyes, and another existence appeared that they, the Swanyan Holy Sect, could not afford to provoke. And Master, Qinghuan seems to be crazy. At this time, the Xianming Supreme Elder said again with a look of panic on his face. That girl actually dared to scold the Lord of the Divine Dynasty, and the lord of the divine dynasty didn't even dare to refute her. It was as if an elder was educating a younger one, and that younger one was the lord of the divine dynasty. As Supreme Elder Xianming spoke, he recounted what had happened. What? After listening to the narration of Supreme Elder Xianming, Yu Ji was stunned for a moment. Could it be that the reason why Ditian acted like a junior and allowed Luo Qinghuan to scold him? It's all because of that powerful guardian elder? Hiss. Think of this. Yu Ji took a deep breath, and the hesitation in her beautiful eyes suddenly became extremely firm. That great guardian elder is so powerful, why is she still hesitating? At the same time, inside the extreme demon valley, the valley master was extremely furious. Not only did he fail to complete the task assigned by his master, he even lost 3 demons. Even his master had to urgently withdraw a phantom of the demon god. Could it be that? Is it because you are dissatisfied with what they have done? Hateful. Go check it out. I want to see what the origins of that little girl are. She could actually resonate with the power left by that person. Zhongzhou. Wuji Royal City, the Royal Palace Courtyard. During this period of time, Luo Qinghuan practiced in the courtyard and suddenly realized the art of forging magic weapons. And Suya is studying the imperial weapon Kunlun Mirror. This is space blockade. When the great emperor repaired the Kunlun Mirror, it was no longer just a space for storing things, but also had some of the functions of a magical weapon. And this space blockade is one of them. After casting, the selected enemy will be trapped in space and its movements will be restricted. Will it be effective for cultivators of any realm? However, the greater the difference in strength, the shorter the time of space blockade. Su Yi's gaze fell on the introduction of the space blockade, and a solemn look flashed across his eyes. This magical martial art seems a bit against the will of heaven? Is it effective for monks at any level? Although the blockade time will be shortened due to the difference in strength. But even if one can control it for just 1 second, it can be of incredible help in a life and death battle, and can even help turn the tide of the battle. Good. Suya nodded with satisfaction. He immediately talked to Luo Qinghuan about the function of Kunlun Mirror's magic weapon martial arts space blockade. After listening, the girl widened her beautiful eyes in shock. Wow, so amazing! If the space is blocked and their movements are restricted, then doesn't that mean they can do whatever they want? That's right. Suya nodded and continued with a smile. However, the real purpose of this space blockade should be to restrict his actions. If you can kill him, then kill him. If you can't kill him, then borrow his trump cards during this period of time. Luo Qinghuan. Learn something again. Chapter 81. That. At this time, the girl said she had learned it, and raised her eyebrows. She thought of something again. She frowned slightly and murmured, then this trick can also be used to help other monks purify themselves, right? We need to prepare a few more sacks. So yet. Okay. This girl can now draw inferences from what she has learned. That's right. We can use the divine rank item forging technique to see if there are any items that can be added to this Kunlun mirror. Think of this. Suya immediately activated the divine rank entry forging technique. When his eyes fell on Kunlun mirror, an entry vaguely emerged. Indeed, there is. He looked immediately. 1v1 real man battle, add this entry to make the cultivation level of the monks in the space blockade consistent with Luo Qinghuan. Just a short sentence. But it instantly made Su Yi's eyes widen and he took a breath of cold air. Hiss. Isn't this too much of a joke? If the one trapped is a great emperor, even if he can only be locked for 1 second, but with the existence of this entry, within this second, the cultivation level of this great emperor will be consistent with Luo Qinghuan, then even if this great emperor cannot be killed instantly, it will be enough to injure him. Is this what it feels like to be cheated? This is so cool. Suya couldn't help but sigh. If there was such a thing in the previous life, this continent would not be called Profound Heaven Continent, but Su Yi's backyard. Girl Luo, your brother Ye has helped you cheat again. What's the hang? The girl asked curiously. You'll know when the time comes. Suya smiled mysteriously. Oh. The girl murmured, oh. Then she couldn't help but said, Suya, Senior Ditian said that the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower will not be opened for some time, why don't we go to the royal city for a look? I heard that the capital of the Wuji divine dynasty is the most prosperous city in the entire desolate sky region. There must be a lot of things to see, do, and eat. Speaking of this, the girl's eyes were full of anticipation. Okay, if you want to go, then go. Suya smiled and nodded. Luo Qinghuan had stayed in Swanyan holy religion for many years before. Now that she has come to a prosperous place, it is normal for a girl to want to go and take a look. Okay, hearing Suyi's words, the girl's eyes became brighter and she nodded slightly. Then let's go. Wuji Royal City. This place is undoubtedly the most prosperous city in the entire desolate sky realm. In the streets and alleys, the vendors are constantly shouting, and there are crowds of monks coming and going, making it very lively. And in the crowd, a young girl in a white dress was very eye-catching. She wandered curiously among the vendors, and her every frown and smile immediately attracted many passers-by. Whose girl is this? So beautiful! Love it, love it! For a moment, there were constant exclamations. But at this moment, the girl ignored everyone's gaze and stopped in front of a meat bun vendor, looking at him curiously. Miss, this is our new product, durian meat buns, 10 spirit coins each. When the vendor saw the beautiful girl, a look of surprise flashed in his eyes. He was stunned for a moment before he came to his senses and immediately introduced his new products with a smile. Durian, meat, steamed buns. Luo Qinghuan raised her eyebrows slightly. How are these words put together? But after some hesitation and Suyi's instigation, she still bought one, but when she looked at the strange durian meat bun in her hand, she still hesitated. Suya! Forget it! Luo Qinghuan moved her red lips, but she really didn't have the courage to put it in her mouth. If you don't want to eat it, let your brother Ye eat it. Suya was also very curious about what this thing would taste like, after all, he had never tried it before or after transmigrate. Then, you eat it. The girl finally gave up. Wrong. However, as soon as she finished speaking, she realized something was wrong. Although she doesn't want to eat, Suya wants to eat, but if Suya eats, doesn't she still have to use her body to eat? How is this different from her eating it herself? However, she was still a step late in speaking, accompanied by the change of expression in the eyes. Suya got on the number and took a bite silently. Woo-woo. Tonic wow. Ugh. The girl struggled, but was still a step too late. The next moment a strange taste rushed into her taste buds. How about it? When the vendor saw the girl eating it, he immediately looked over with a smile on his face. The girl said with a gloomy face, "It's delicious, I won't eat it again next time." Next, when Suya returned control of his body, he found that the girl was obviously staying away from the snack vendors after wandering around the royal city. It was obvious that she was afraid that Suya would log in again and eat some strange things. And just when the girl was strolling around, not far away, a group of young men dressed in fancy clothes and holding folding fans had already set their sights on the girl and walked over with smiles on their faces. Miss, are you interested in going to Fenjiu Tower with us to recite a poem? Luo Qinghuan, who was strolling around, frowned slightly, glanced at the group of people, and then shook her head, I'm busy. Is this a classic scene? Suya Wen sigh. What era is this? There is also this kind of plot where a girl is molested in broad daylight? Are you kidding me? Don't worry, girl. We are not bad people. I really just want to invite you to go to Fenjiu Tower and recite a poem. The young men waved their folding fans and invited him again. Seeing this, Luo Qinghuan frowned slightly. Suya said that these kinds of dogskin plasters that can't be driven away, as long as you treat them kindly, they will naturally leave. Then, the girl prepared to take out the long Yuan sword and release the aura of a powerful person in the realm of creation. But at this moment, a delicate cry suddenly rang out. Presumptuous! What are you doing? Just see! A hot woman in a black leather jacket and holding a long whip came over. The fourth princess! I have met the fourth princess! When they saw this hot woman, the faces of several young men changed and they quickly bowed. The surrounding vendors also saluted. Miss Luo, are you okay? The woman ignored them and looked at Luo Qinghuan. After asking, she recalled and muttered, No, these guys can't hurt you. After all, Miss Luo, you are the same as me, also in the realm of creation. What? Creation realm? As soon as these words came out, the faces of the people around changed drastically. I didn't expect that this girl is not only stunningly beautiful, but also so powerful. Who are you? Luo Qinghuan looked at the hot woman curiously, especially at her proud figure, and immediately pouted her lips. Delanner, the fourth princess of the Wuji divine dynasty. Delanner introduced herself with a long whip in her hand, then swung the long whip in her hand and looked at the young men with a bad face. Well, you guys, you dare to have bad intentions even for my distinguished guests of the divine dynasty. The princess is innocent. We really just want to invite this girl to Fenjiu Tower to recite a poem. Several people immediately protested their injustice. Then he silently took out the storage ring, and with the flashing light, various poetry collections appeared in front of the two people. I guess he is really a scholar. When they talked about the whole thing, it turned out that the theme of the poetry recitation meeting held today by Fenjiu Tower, where scholars gathered, was Yiren, so when they saw such a beautiful Luo Qinghuan, they came to invite her. So yet, what kind of place is a place for serious scholars to study called Tama Fenjiu Tower? Resolve misunderstandings. Delanner told them to get out of here immediately, then she looked at the girl with the whip in her hand. After marveling at her beauty, she smiled and said, I've heard about Miss Luo's deeds a long time ago, and I've always wanted to invite her to visit the imperial city. It's a pity that father said not to disturb your practice. Now we finally meet in the royal city. I wonder what Miss Luo is planning? I'm going to Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion. If Miss Luo doesn't know where to go, why not come with me? Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion. When Suye heard these 4 words, he was stunned. What a familiar name. Chapter 82. Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion, what is that? A hint of doubt flashed in Luo Qinghuan's eyes. The Heavenly Saint Pavilion can only be considered a first-rate force in the wilderness region, but the Heavenly Saint auction it holds is one of the largest auctions. Because this Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion is spread all over the 9 regions. Delanner explained. Oh. When Suye heard Delanner say that the Tianbao Holy Pavilion was spread throughout the 9 regions, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, and his speculation in his heart became even heavier. His third senior brother from Heavenly Palace was named Tianbao Daoist, and he once aspired to earn all the money of the monks in the 9 realms. Could it be that this Tianbao Sheng Pavilion was secretly opened by his third senior brother? How about it? Delanner looked at Luo Qinghuan and asked with a smile, Miss Luo, how about going for a look together? I heard that there will be a lot of good things at the Heavenly Saint auction this time. Maybe there is something that Miss Luo wants. Suye. The girl did not reply to her, but secretly asked Suye in her heart. Let's go and have a look. Suye nodded. Just as Delanner said, there are a lot of good things at the Heavenly Saint auction. If there is anything useful, he can give it to Luo Yedu. Secondly, he can confirm his guess. Let's see if the owner of this Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion is his third senior brother from Heavenly Palace. Although his senior brothers and sisters from Heavenly Palace are no longer as strong as they used to be due to the karma of heaven, they are still first-rate strong men. If they can be found and recognized as soon as possible, Luo Girl will suddenly have several more strong protectors. It can also help him rebuild his body more smoothly. Then let's go together. After getting Suye's affirmation, Luo Qinghuan nodded slightly. Miss Na Luo, please follow me. Delanner raised her whip and swung her hair. Royal City. The most prosperous central area. A magnificent vermilion pavilion stands here, which is the Heavenly Saint Pavilion. And at this moment, as one of the largest auctions in the desolate sky territory, when the Heavenly Saint auction opened, many powerful people from all over the desolate sky territory came. For a time, the Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion was overcrowded, and many monks were lingering at the door waiting to enter. Just at this moment, 2 graceful figures appeared, instantly attracting the attention of many monks. What a beautiful woman! One is extremely hot, the other is pure and sweet, and their faces are the most beautiful in the world. Hey! Why don't they have to queue? Can they go in directly? Just as these monks were sighing, someone saw the 2 girls directly enter the Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion. Nonsense! Didn't you see the woman in black leather clothes holding a long whip? That's Delanner, the 4th princess of the Wuji divine dynasty. Hiss! No wonder. Accompanied by discussions around. Delanner had already brought Luo Qinghuan into the Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion. Meet Her Royal Highness. When the 2 entered, a person in charge of Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion immediately walked out, saluted to Delanner, and then looked at the girl in white dress beside him with confusion. Who is this? Miss Luo is a distinguished guest of my Wuji divine dynasty. She will be attending the Heavenly Saint auction with me. Delaner introduced. So you are a distinguished guest from the divine dynasty. Nice to meet you, Miss Luo. Please follow me, both of you. The person in charge of Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion said something to the two women, and then took them into a private room. The Tianzi box. It can block the smell of people and protect the privacy of the auction participants. Delaner explained to Luo Qinghuan. The girl nodded. Wait for the two of them to sit down in the box. Su Yi's voice rang in the girl's mind. Girl Luo, ask her later if she knows anything about the owner of Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion. The owner of Heavenly Saint Pavilion. A hint of doubt flashed across Luo Qinghuan's beautiful eyes. I suspect that the master behind this Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion is most likely my third senior brother from Heavenly Palace. Su Ye nodded and said in a deep voice. The master behind Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion could be Su Ye, your third senior brother. Hearing this, the girl widened her beautiful eyes. Su Ye was not simple, and even the people around him were not simple. Just now Delaner said that the Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion is spread across the 9 regions and is financially strong. How rich must Su Yi's third senior brother be? Okay. I'll ask later. Luo Qinghuan nodded slightly. There is still some time before the Heavenly Saint auction begins. During this time, many powerful people have entered the venue one after another. Some independent cultivators or weaker forces are in the lobby, while those with strong status and strength are arranged in various boxes. Before the auction starts, the two women also chatted a lot. Luo Qinghuan also took the opportunity to ask what Su Ye asked her to ask. Fourth Princess, do you know who the owner of this Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion is? The owner of Heavenly Saint Pavilion. A hint of doubt flashed across Delaner's beautiful eyes, and then she pondered for a moment. The Heavenly Saint Pavilion is spread across the 9 regions, and each pavilion has its own pavilion master. If it is the master of the Heavenly Saint Pavilion in the Desolate Sky region, it should be Pavilion Master Qin Feng. As for the Heavenly Saint Pavilion Masters in other regions, I don't know. Delaner shook her head. Su Ye, is that your third senior brother? Hearing this, Luo Qinghuan immediately asked in his mind. Su Ye shook his head. Luo girl, no need to ask. Since Delaner only knows the identity of a branch Pavilion Master, it is unlikely that she would know anything about the Pavilion Master behind the scenes. Why did Miss Luo suddenly ask this? Delaner asked doubtfully. I'm just curious. After all, to be able to create a treasure pavilion that covers all 9 regions, the owner behind this Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion must be quite extraordinary. Luo Qinghuan said softly. That's true. Delaner nodded in agreement, then sighed, but the owner of Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion has never appeared in public, he is very mysterious. Alright. Miss Luo, I heard that you have been staying in Swanyan Holy Church. Is this your first time attending the Heavenly Saint auction? Hey. You will see the wonders of the Heavenly Saint auction in a moment. What's so exciting? A hint of doubt flashed in Luo Qinghuan's eyes. What's so exciting about an auction? Miss Luo, don't underestimate the Heavenly Saint auction. Since it has become one of the largest auctions in the wilderness region, it shows how extraordinary it is. After all, it has everything and auctions everything. Delaner smiled mysteriously. We have cat maids, wolf dog maids, and other types of maids. If Miss Luo is interested, you can try to auction one. Hearing this, the girl blushed and shook her head quickly. And at this time, Delaner added. Also, there is the law treasure that can make people obedient. Obedient law treasure. As soon as these words came out, the girl's eyes lit up. Hey. Do you want to arrange one for Su Ye? It's that bad guy's fault for bullying her every day. Su Ye. My stupid Luo girl, have you ever thought that you might not be killed in return? Chapter 83. Soon. The two women chatted for a while. The door to the entire auction venue slammed shut, which meant that the Heavenly Saint auction had begun. You've been waiting for a long time. Just at this moment, accompanied by a woman's charming laugh, a woman in a red cheongsam with a curvy figure slowly walked onto the auction stage, her every frown and smile full of charm. What a charming woman! Luo Qinghuan glanced at the cheongsam woman and couldn't help but say. Even a girl like her could sense the charm of this woman, not to mention the male monks whose blood boiled and whose faces turned red and necks became thick when they saw this woman. It's just a common method used in auctions. In my mind. Suya said lightly. Anyway. Use beautiful and charming women to ignite the nature of these monks and liven up the atmosphere so that they can fight each other at the auction later. As the saying goes, 1,000 gold coins will only buy a beautiful woman's smile. Oh. Luo Qinghuan nodded thoughtfully. If I were an auctioneer, would it be the same? You. Suya sneered. The auctioneer is not only beautiful, but also has a curvy figure. You? You just have the figure of an elementary school student. Luo Qinghuan. She felt that Suya was humiliating her. And she has evidence. Isn't this ancient divine clothing said to be able to improve one's figure? She has been wearing it secretly for such a long time, why hasn't she noticed any bigger changes? Stinky Suya. Come out, I promise I won't bite you to death. The girl pouted. Really? I'm afraid that after your brother Ye comes out, you won't dare to bite. Suya crossed his arms and smiled. What's the meaning? The girl was stunned, somewhat confused. It's out. Why don't you dare bite? This woman is the debut auctioneer of Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion, Yue Hua. Aside. Delaner said slowly, it seems that there will be a lot of good things in this auction. After all, Yue Hua usually doesn't come out. If it does, there will be a lot of good things auctioned. And at this moment, just as Suya said, when the moonflower appeared, all the monks present were like hungry wolves, looking at the moonflower on the field with burning eyes. Wait a minute. If I can see Miss Yue Hua once, it would be worth waiting for 100,000 years. A young man holding a folding fan smiled. Hee. Saint Child of the Sky is joking. Yue Hua seemed to be amused by the sweet talk. She covered her mouth with her hands, smiled, and shook her head. Hee. 100,000 years. Are you a mere sacred land saint child worthy of living for 100,000 years? The people around him were dismissive of the sweet words of Saint Child of the Sky. Everyone, without further ado, let's start the Tianbao auction now. Yue Hua said, clapped her hands, and a maid came up with the auction items in her hands. Earth rank Moon Spirit Technique, starting price 200,000 spirit coins. Each increase in price must be at least 10,000 spirit coins. Hee. Everyone, let's get started. As she finished her words, the surrounding monks immediately began to loot. After all, not everyone is a top-notch or first-rate force, so this earth rank technique is of great help to them. 250,000 spirit coins. 270,000 spirit coins. Final. This earth rank technique was bought by a powerful person from a second-rate force at the price of 500,000 spirit coins. The auction continues. In the Tianzi box, Delaner occasionally auctioned some items, and Luo Qinghuan just watched the process silently. It was not because she had no money, but Suya said that it was a complete waste of money to auction these junk. It would be better to see if there was anyone with a destiny to bring these junk next time, and she could help clean up the garbage. Everyone. Next, it can be said to be one of the highlights of this auction. At this time, accompanied by the sound of moonflowers, a maid came over carrying a wooden box. Without even opening the wooden box, a refreshing smell immediately wafted out of it. This is... Hiss! What a nice smell! What's in this wooden box? Feeling this breath, everyone felt that the contents of the wooden box were extremely extraordinary. This thing may be useless to all of you here, but it is of great help to the younger generation prodigy in the section. Yue Hua smiled mysteriously and then waved her hand. The maid opened the wooden box. There was a fruit lying inside that looked like a core, with light flowing on it and containing the aura of the great Dao. This is... Everyone's pupil shrank. Dao fruit. Yue Hua said softly. What? Creation Dao fruit. According to legend, the realm of good fortune is supposed to seize the good fortune of heaven and earth and create one's own good fortune, but how can anyone seize the good fortune of heaven and earth? Therefore, the realm of good fortune in later generations is basically a fake realm of good fortune, which does not possess the aura of the good fortune of heaven and earth. Except for a small number of prodigy who are able to seize the fortune of heaven and earth, most prodigy, if they want to seize the fortune of heaven and earth and become a true fortune realm instead of a fake one, need to rely on this Dao fruit of the fortune of heaven and earth. Hiss! I didn't expect there would be such good stuff at this auction. When the monks heard Yue Hua's words, they were shocked. They gasped and looked at the Dao fruit in the wooden box with fiery eyes. Ha ha ha! I'm offering 1 million spirit coins. Just in time to get a Dao fruit for my precious granddaughter. Snort! What's a million? I offer 2 million. For a while. Before Tianhua announced the auction price of the Dao fruit, the entire auction venue was already in a state of scramble. Dao fruit. The girl was stunned. Even Delaner, who was standing by, was moved. After all, this thing is extremely attractive to any prodigy in the realm of creation. If others don't have the energy of creation, then they are just faking the state of creation. But if you absorb the Dao fruit created by heaven and earth, then you will be in the real state of creation. The gap is huge. Good fortune Dao fruit, it seems that this thing of Luo Yetu is destined to be with us. Su Yi's eyes flashed with a gleam of light. Although Luo Yetu could feel the good fortune of heaven and earth, it would be much smoother if she had this good fortune Dao fruit. Su Yat, did you also take the Dao fruit? Luo Qinghuan was a little curious. After all, it was the first time she heard that there was a difference between the realm of creation and the realm of fake creation. How could your brother Ye have such conditions in the first place? Su Ye rolled her eyes in annoyance. Even if he wanted to snatch the Dao fruit of good fortune, he had to be wary of the strong man behind him. So you faked the state of enlightenment? That's not the case. Su Ye touched his nose and said, because your brother Ye didn't have the destiny Dao fruit, I comprehended the destiny of heaven and earth by myself. I didn't expect it to be quite simple. I comprehended it in an instant. Luo Qinghuan. Don't worry, everyone at this time. Yuehua waved her hand, interrupting the crowd's scramble. There is one more thing Yuehua must explain. That means this Dao fruit is not yet mature. It will take another 500 years for it to mature. Chapter 84. What? It will take another 500 years for it to fully mature. As soon as Yuehua finished speaking, everyone in the auction hall couldn't help but frown, and their originally hot hearts seemed to be suddenly poured with a basin of cold water. Dao fruit takes 500 years to mature. Even if they bid it down now, they would have to wait another 500 years. Even if they used some means to speed up the maturity of this Dao fruit, it would still take at least 200 to 300 years. They are now bidding for this Dao fruit just for the prodigy of the Dao realm within the sect. If they waited 100 years, these prodigy would have already broken through to the realm of creation. After all, if one remains in the realm of good fortune for hundreds of years, then he is not a prodigy and is not worthy of using this Dao fruit of good fortune. Alright everyone. I have said so much for Yuehua. As for what you guys should choose, it is up to you guys, haha. Yuehua covered her mouth and smiled. Then the price of this Dao fruit was announced. The starting price for this Dao fruit is 10 million spirit coins, and each bid increase must not be less than 100,000 spirit coins. Hiss. 10 million. Hearing this, the powerful people present couldn't help but gasp. This is just an immature Dao fruit, and the starting price is as high as 10 million spirit coins. If it is a mature Dao fruit, how much higher would the price be? I, the sacred land of the sky, am willing to pay 10 million spirit coins. Just when the powerful people from various forces were hesitating, a young man's voice was heard in a private room. It was the saint child of the sky who was holding the folding fan earlier. He was seen pulling the curtain of the box with the word opening heaven on it, not caring at all about exposing his identity. Hee. The sky saint child is indeed a first-class sacred land saint child, and he is generous with his money. Yuehua's every frown and smile controlled saint child of the sky, which made the latter's eyes more fiery. Sky saint child offers 10 million spirit coins. Is there anyone who can offer a higher price? As Yuehua's voice fell. Humph. Saint child of the sky, your current strength is only at the peak of the heavenly venerable realm. How come it takes you 100 years to break through the creation realm? Why not give it to the man of the future generation like me? I, the Blood Moon sect, am willing to offer you 15 million. An old man snorted coldly and stood up. 17 million. 20 million. For a while. In addition to the bid made by the old man from the Blood Moon sect, all the strong men in the auction venue and in the various private rooms also made bids. Although this good fortune Dao fruit is not yet ripe, it does not affect everyone's desire for it. At worst, they can auction it off now and grant it to their sex prodigy 500 years later. Snort. In terms of financial strength, even if we, sacred land, are not afraid of you, we are not afraid of you. Saint Child of the Sky snorted coldly. Bid 30 million. Suyet, we are so poor. When the girl saw that the good fortune Dao fruit was raised to a price of more than 30 million spirit coins in the blink of an eye, and the auction price was still rising, her face was filled with distress, and she felt extremely poor in an instant. Although Suya had previously cheated Yan Yun out of 100,000 spirit coins, it still seemed far from enough in comparison. Poor. Suya laughed. He has never had any practical feelings about spirit coins. Perhaps for the cultivators of the Tianxian 9 regions, spirit coins are the only universal currency, but for him, the fierce bandit great emperor, spirit coins are not the only universal currency. After all, it is a bit too troublesome to first earn spirit coins and then use the spirit coins to buy good treasures. It's better to just cheat the baby. But we must get this lucky Dao fruit. It's not like this Dao fruit will take another 500 years to mature. No. As soon as Luo Qinghuan said this, he quickly realized that something was wrong. This Dao fruit may take 500 years for others to mature, but it is not the case for her and Suyat. The immortality medicine field in Kunlun realm. A gleam of light flashed in the girl's beautiful eyes. That's right. Suya smiled and nodded. Now, the longevity medicine field can not only grow quickly, but also improve the quality of the spirit medicine planted in the field. As long as the unripe Dao fruit is planted in the longevity medicine field, it will not only accelerate the maturity of the Dao fruit, but also improve its grade. Girl Luo, please offer 40 million. 40 million. The girl was stunned. Suyat, where do we get so many spirit coins? Just because you don't have it doesn't mean your brother Ye doesn't have it. Suya smiled mysteriously. Have you forgotten the Kunlun mirror? The old man Shenbing helped us repair the Kunlun mirror. The self-protection barrier has been removed. This Kunlun mirror is the great emperor of Kunlun's own small treasury. Do you think a great emperor would be poor? Hey. How many spirit coins are there in the Kunlun great emperor's treasury? The girl smiled innocently, with an expression that looked like a money grubber. No. I estimate that there should be more than 1 billion spirit coins. Suya shook his head. Luo Qinghuan immediately widened her beautiful eyes, more than 1 billion. He. Suyat, we are rich, ... Snort. 38 million spirit coins. This saint child wants to see who can snatch this good fortune Dao fruit from this saint child. At this time, Saint Child of the Sky snorted coldly. The price was directly increased from 33 million spirit coins to 38 million spirit coins. After saying this, he looked at Yue Hua with a smug look on his face, as if he was spending a fortune just to make a beautiful woman smile. This guy is a man obsessed with S***X. Originally, the price of an unripe Dao fruit was about 30 million spirit coins, but this saint child insisted on raising it to 38 million. See this scene. Inside the auction venue, a group of powerful people couldn't help but curse in their hearts. Although the Dao fruit of good fortune is powerful, it only gives a cultivator in the realm of good fortune a chance to seize the good fortune of heaven and earth. Whether or not one can seize this good fortune depends on the cultivator's own talent. Tianzi box. Delaner hesitated for a while and finally gave up the bidding. It's not that she has no money. After all, as the princess of the Wuji divine dynasty, one of the 5 top forces, she can still afford this amount of money. The reason for giving up. However, considering that this good fortune Dao fruit is not yet mature, even if she asks her father to use means to shorten its growth cycle, it will still take 200 to 300 years. In this time, she would have already broken through to the great power realm and would not have any use for this good fortune Dao fruit. However, just at this moment, the voice of a young girl beside her suddenly sounded. 40 million. As soon as these words came out, everyone in the auction venue was stunned for a moment. After they reacted, they looked towards the Tianzi box in astonishment. 40 million. Saint Child of the Sky was stunned, and his expression suddenly became a little ugly. Chapter 85. He. This guest in the Tianzi box has offered 40 million spirit coins. Is there anyone who can offer a higher price? If not, then this Dao fruit will belong to the guest in the Tianzi box. Hearing the girl's bid, Yue Hua covered her mouth and chuckled, then asked everyone. Snort. 45 million spirit coins. Saint Child of the Sky snorted coldly and made another bid. 45,100,000. The girl's voice sounded again. 50 million. 5,100,000. Next, no matter how much Saint Child of the Sky offered, the girl in the Tianzi box would simply add 100,000 spirit coins to the price offered by Saint Child of the Sky. Hiss. In the Tianzi box. Delanner took a deep breath and looked at the girl beside her in astonishment with her beautiful eyes wide open. Miss Luo is actually a rich woman. Although Luo Qinghuan is also a prodigy of a first-rate force, she is different from Saint Child of the Sky. Saint Child of the Sky's father is Saint Lord of the Sky, which means that all sacred land of the sky belongs to him, so it is normal for him to be rich. But the girl is ultimately just a prodigy in the sect. The financial resources can't be greater than that of Saint Child, right? But now it seems. The girl seems to have a lot of money? So yeah, isn't it a bit bad for us to do this? Only adding 100,000 spirit coins each time. Isn't that a bit cheap? At this moment, the girl did not care about the stunned expression of Delanner beside her, but just asked Suya in a low voice in her heart. BCH. No, no, no. Suya just smiled and shook his head. This is called thrift and diligence, saving as much as possible. Oh. Luo Qinghuan nodded thoughtfully. Soon. As the two of them raised the price of this good fortune Dao fruit soon reached more than 50 million spirit coins. Saint Child. If this continues, we won't be able to participate in future auctions at the same time. In the Saint Child box of the Sky Dome, the old man behind him also frowned, feeling a little uncomfortable, and quickly gave a reminder. Don't worry, Mr. Lu. Saint Child, know what's going on. Saint Child narrowed his eyes, then raised his head to look at the box. Through the veil, he seemed to be able to see the figure of the graceful girl inside, and a fiery look immediately flashed in his eyes. This lady, although I don't know which sect you belong to, why don't you give me a favor and give me this Dao fruit? However, as soon as these words came out, in the box that day, the girl ignored his words and quietly added another 100,000 spirit coins to his bid. Hearing this, Saint Child's expression became even uglier. Stinky woman. Don't let this Saint Child know who you are. If you fall into this Saint Child's hands, this Saint Child will definitely play with you. So yet, what if this guy keeps raising the price? In the Tianzi box, Luo Qinghuan glanced at Saint Child in the sky, and frowned slightly. Although they are rich now, they can't waste it like this. This one. Suya pondered for a moment, and a kind smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. It's very simple, let your brother Ye help him clear his sins. If he doesn't have money, what can he use to increase the price? Empty the sins. Here. The girl was stunned. Have you forgotten the new skill you just acquired? Suya smiled mysteriously. Then, without any hesitation, he directly launched a space blockade on the Tianzi box where Saint Child was. The venerable realm was just a mere space, but it was enough to block it for several hours. But Suya did not choose to do so. Instead, he chose to block it for just 1 second. 1 second is just enough to clear all sins and achieve the effect without anyone noticing. Successful use of space blockade, target, Saint Child of the Sky. As the system voice fell inside the Tianzi box, Saint Child suddenly felt a little ethereal, as if he had been forcibly transferred to some place else. Suddenly, a ball of black light flashed past him. But just as he was wondering, the feeling only lasted for a second and then disappeared. What happened just now? Saint Child was stunned, and felt a little strange. Saint Child, what's wrong? The old man beside him was also at the Great Power Realm, and had no idea that Saint Child of the Sky had just been pulled into another dimension within a second. It seems that this Saint Child just went somewhere else. Somewhere else? The old man frowned, then shook his head. No. Saint Child has just been staying in this Tianzi box. Really? Saint Child frowned and subconsciously touched the storage ring in his hand, but the empty feeling in his hand suddenly made his face change. He looked down suddenly and found that the storage ring in his hand was gone. Hiss. Where is this Saint Child's storage ring? There are a full 500 million spirit coins in it, but Daddy is giving this Saint Child the money to use for the auction this time. What? Saint Child, where is the storage ring on your hand? Aside. The old man also reacted suddenly, looking confused. Saint Child, don't know. Saint Child's face changed, and he suddenly felt a burning pain on his face. FK. Saint Child, your face looks like you were slapped. The old man exclaimed again. What? Saint Child of the Sky took out a bronze mirror and saw that his originally handsome face had inexplicably swollen into a pig's head. What's going on? This moment. Saint Child of the Sky Dome looked confused. Did he encounter a ghost? Not only did the storage ring go missing, but he was also hit in the face? The guest in the Tianzi box has offered 53.1 million spirit coins. I wonder if Saint Child of the Sky Dome can raise the price. Just at this moment, Yue Hua's voice sounded again. Increase the price. What the hell? This Saint Child's storage ring was stolen. Not only was it stolen, but even Saint Child's handsome face was slapped. Saint Child roared and pulled open the curtains. Everyone could immediately see more clearly the appearance of Saint Child in the box who had turned into a pig's head. Ah! Hearing this, Yue Hua was stunned and frowned slightly. Saint Child of the Sky. You mean, in the eyes of all the powerful monks, not only was your storage ring stolen, but you were also slapped in the face by that person. She looked at Saint Child in the sky, as if she was looking at an idiot. Do you think everyone here is blind? Who could rush into your box in front of everyone, steal your storage ring in front of you, and then slap you? Yes. Saint Child of the Sky covered his face and nodded seriously. Puff. Ha ha ha. The monks present who heard this seemed to be looking at a fool and couldn't help but burst into laughter. Could it be that Saint Child of the Sky was short of money and afraid of losing face in front of Yue Hua, so he directed and performed this play himself? But he is also a ruthless person. Really slap yourself? Hateful. And seeing the foolish looks from everyone and Yue Hua, Saint Child of the Sky also realized his own gaffe, his face flushed, and he clenched his teeth, looking as if he was gritting his teeth. And at this moment, in a certain private room, a young girl who saw this scene couldn't hold back her laughter. Chapter 86. Stinky Suyat, you are so bad. You cleansed him of his sins, why did you slap him? The girl asked, unable to hold back her laughter. Everyone in the auction hall looked at Tianxing Saint Child as if he were a fool, but only Luo Qinghuan realized at this moment that what Tianxing Saint Child said was true. Just now, Zhou Suya launched a space blockade. He forcibly pulled Saint Child of the Sky into a space, then purified his sins in 1 second and slapped him in the face. Your brother yet, please help him cleanse his sins and then cleanse his ugliness. Look at his pig-headed appearance. How cute he is. At least he's not ugly anymore. Suya laughed. Puff. Hearing this, the girl tried to hold back her laughter. Suya was really mean. Good. This Dao fruit of good fortune is like a gift from this guy to us. After Suya finished speaking, he took a quick look at the storage bag of Saint Child of the Sky, which contained about a few 100 million spirit coins. He immediately nodded with satisfaction. Hey, this Saint Child of the Sky is really nice. Aside, Luo Qinghuan also laughed. Miss Luo, what's wrong with you? When Dilaner saw Luo Qinghuan with a smile on her face in the box, a hint of doubt flashed across her beautiful eyes. Why did she vaguely feel that she saw a trace of bandit aura from Miss Luo? Ahem. No, nothing. The girl shook her head, coughed lightly, and then looked at Yue Hua on the auction table seriously. Ms. Yue Hua, since Tianxing Saint Child no longer has the financial resources to bid, should we announce the winner of this Dao fruit? After the girl reminded me. Yue Hua also came back to her senses and looked at the people in the auction venue. Do you want to raise the price? If no one continues to bid, then this Dao fruit will belong to the guest in the Tianzi box. When Yue Hua said this, the powerful people from the surrounding forces hesitated for a moment, but finally chose to give up. Then this good fortune Dao fruit was finally sold for 53.1 million spirit coins, and the winner is the guest in the Tianzi box. Yue Hua announced the final result immediately. Hateful. In another box, Saint Child of the Sky had an extremely ugly expression on his face. He covered his pig-like face with his hands, full of indignation. He looked towards the box where Luo Qinghuan was with resentment. Until now, he still didn't understand what was going on. Snort. This Dao fruit of fortune is what I want. Mr. Lu, help me keep an eye on that woman. Yes. The old man beside him nodded. After Yue Hua announced the result, Luo Qinghuan sat down with peace of mind. Now all you have to do is wait for the auction to end, pay the money and take the goods. Ms. Luo, I didn't expect you to be so rich. You're even richer than me. Delanner was amazed and couldn't help but sigh as she looked at the girl next to her. You don't feel bad at all for spending so much spirit coins. Cough. Luo Qinghuan coughed lightly and turned his face slightly. Money. They are all external things. Hearing this, Delanner opened her red lips slightly, and looked at Luo Qinghuan in some surprise. She didn't expect Miss Luo to look so free and easy, she was simply sober. Luo Qinghuan, anyway, it's not my money, so I don't feel bad about it. At the same time, Yue Hua also continued to preside over the auction. There were also many good things in the following auction, which attracted many powerful people to bid. During this period, Su Ye also asked Luo Qinghuan to buy some useful things. That not only surprised Delanner, but also stunned a group of powerful people. Which faction's rich lady is sitting in the Tianzi box? And all this. This was also seen by Saint Child of the Sky. But at this moment, without the spirit coins in the storage ring, he no longer had the qualifications to bid. He could only watch helplessly, and even kept searching for his missing storage ring in the box. Just at this moment, Yue Hua suddenly clapped her hands, signaling the entire auction venue to be quiet. Everyone please be quiet. Next, it is the highlight of this auction, and also the last item to be auctioned. As soon as these words came out, the venue suddenly became quiet. All the powerful people from all forces looked at Yue Hua curiously. What exactly was this last auction item? It's finally here. Some strong men in the box who had already known the news all had their eyes lit up and began to look forward to it. This object is made of meteorite iron from outer space. Legend has it that it was originally built by a great emperor as a burial place for himself. Yue Hua's voice rang out. The faces of everyone in the auction hall suddenly became solemn. Meteorite from outer space? A burial place built by a great emperor for himself? Although I don't know what it is. But since it is related to the great emperor, it is destined to be extraordinary. Carry it up. Yue Hua clapped her jade hands lightly, and several maids carried up a pitch-black coffin. An eerie and cold atmosphere immediately enveloped the entire auction venue. Immediately, the faces of all the strong men present changed and they became extremely fearful. This item is called the Emperor's Coffin. After being appraised by the Great Master of Tianbao Holy Pavilion, it is not an imperial weapon, but at least it is above the saint weapon and is a semi-imperial weapon. As for its function, I have no idea. The starting price is 100 million spirit coins, and each bid increase must not be less than 10 million spirit coins. After Yue Hua introduced this pitch-black ancient coffin, she announced the starting price. 100 million spirit coins. Hiss. Hearing this, inside the auction venue, many powerful figures took a deep breath. They didn't even know the function of the Emperor's coffin. Just because it was related to the word Emperor, it was able to reach a starting price of 100 million spirit coins. The great Emperor is so powerful and terrifying. But, although the effect is unknown, just the 3 words semi-imperial weapon are enough to make the powerful people from all forces fight to the death. I'm bidding 150 million. Don't FG compete with me for it. The old man from the Blood Moon sect snorted coldly and directly raised the starting price to 150 million. Snort? 150 million is nothing? The last thing we lack is money. Just at this moment, a pot-bellied monk stood up and snorted coldly. Hiss. The thief has taken action. It is said that this thief sect loves to steal, and what they lack the most is spirit coins. Once they make a move, I am afraid they will raise the price to a very terrifying level. When they saw the monk with a big belly, the faces of the powerful people suddenly turned ugly. As expected. When the monk from the thief sect stood up, he slammed the storage ring in his hand on the table. I will bid directly for the door. How much is the offer? See this scene. Many powerful people from various forces were worried. If there were too many of them and it exceeded their expectations, they would have no choice but to give up. The monk from the thief sect snorted coldly and was about to announce a price that would make the other monks give up, when he suddenly saw the lights in a private room turn on. Immediately, his body shivered, his fat trembled, and his voice quietly weakened. Cough. I'm offering 160 million for stealing the door. Hearing this, everyone had a lot of question marks on their heads. You are so aggressive that you just add a minimum price. Chapter 87. Cut. I thought you were so awesome. The old man from the Blood Moon sect snorted disdainfully, and then shouted again in a cold voice, My Blood Moon sect, 180 million. 200 million. 220 million. Seeing that the monk from the thief sect did not bid too high, the powerful men from other forces also made bids. As the bids get higher and higher, the price of this semi-imperial weapon has reached 300 million spirit coins. But at this moment, an old man roared. 500 million. Today, the Blood Moon sect has decided to take over the Emperor's coffin. The old man from the Blood Moon sect was so angry that he gritted his teeth and raised the bidding price to a whopping 500 million. Hiss. 500 million. This Blood Moon Patriarch is really FG crazy. Could this old immortal be planning to use this Emperor suppression coffin as his own coffin? Hearing that Blood Moon Patriarch offered 500 million, all the powerful people in the entire auction venue couldn't help but gasp and looked at him in astonishment. Hee. I've already said that the Emperor's coffin will be the property of the Blood Moon sect. The Blood Moon Patriarch snorted coldly. So yet, do we want to participate? In the Tianzi box. The girl took a look at the dark ancient coffin and asked curiously. Need not. We don't need to wade into this muddy water. Suya shook his head. This Emperor's coffin is of no use to them, and it is only a semi-imperial weapon. Why? That's a semi-imperial weapon. If we take a picture of it and then use Senior Shenbing's forging technique to forge it into an imperial weapon, wouldn't it be able to sell it for more money? He, the girl said seriously. Hearing this, Suya couldn't help laughing. As expected of a girl he values, she does have the demeanor of a fierce bandit. Girl. Have you ever thought about the quality of the Long Yuan sword that the old man Shenbing gave you? Suya asked silently. The girl said weakly, half-divine weapon. Wow. Half-divine weapon. Until then, Luo Qinghuan just realized how powerful the Long Yuan sword forged by Senior Shenbing was. Just a semi-imperial weapon is enough to drive all the powerful people crazy, not to mention the Long Yuan sword which surpasses the imperial weapon and reaches the semi-divine weapon. Stinky Suyat, what should I do? I am a little afraid to wield the Long Yuan sword. The girl said weakly. What's wrong? Suya incomprehensible. Knowing that the Long Yuan sword is so powerful, shouldn't you wield it even more? It feels like I'm waving billions of spirit coins, and every time I swing it, I lose hundreds of millions of spirit coins. Luo Qinghuan replied honestly. Ha ha ha. In terms of value, this Dragon Abyss sword is worth more than a few billion spirit coins, it's worth tens of billions. Suya finished off the enemy silently. Luo Qinghuan. Alright. It's even worse now. At the same time, the Blood Moon sect's ancestor looked at the powerful men who had shut up, snorted with satisfaction, and then looked at Yuehua. Miss Yuehua, can you announce the ownership of this Emperor suppression coffin? If no one bids higher, then this Emperor's coffin. Yuehua nodded and was about to ask. Suddenly, a majestic male voice sounded faintly. 1 billion. What? 10 billion. When I heard this, the faces of everyone in the auction hall suddenly changed, their eyes were filled with deep disbelief, and they looked at each other, wanting to see who could bid such a sky-high price of 1 billion. Fellow deist, are you deliberately going against our Blood Moon sect? The Blood Moon Patriarch also had an extremely ugly expression on his face. When he looked in the direction where the voice came from, his face suddenly changed. He saw the lights in a box suddenly lit up, and a majestic figure was sitting in the box. And above that box, just one word. Emperor. This is not the Tian box that everyone has come to, but the Di box. That means the person sitting in this box is a powerful person from the Emperor realm, maybe even a powerful person from the Great Emperor. Hiss. Senior. I am sorry for offending you just now. This Emperor's coffin now belongs to you. We, the Blood Moon sect, will give it up. When he saw the word Emperor on the box clearly, the Blood Moon Patriarch followed his heart and hurriedly shook his head, choosing to give up. Are you kidding me? Are you trying to compete with the Great Emperor? Even if there is this money, do they, the Blood Moon sect, have this fate? Oh! Have all the powerful men of the Great Emperor taken action? Seeing this scene, Suya was also a little surprised. Would a great emperor be interested in a semi-imperial weapon? Hey! Why is father here too? Delanner, who was standing by, immediately recognized that the owner of the voice was her father, the lord of the Wuji divine dynasty, Ditian. It turned out to be Ditian. Why does he want this emperor's coffin? Hearing Delanner's words, Suya frowned. Then the recipient of this emperor's coffin must be the guest in the emperor's box. Yuehua also announced the ownership of this last auction item. After all, with the great emperor making the move, almost no one dared to continue the auction, not to mention that 10 billion was already a lot. Soon after, Yuehua also announced the end of the auction. The Heavenly Saint auction held by Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion has come to an end. Thank you all for participating. In the Tianzi box. Miss Luo, are you going to get the Dao fruit next? Delanner glanced at the rich woman Luo Qinghuan beside her. Luo Qinghuan nodded slightly. Then you go, Miss Luo. I'm going to ask my father what the emperor's coffin is for. After Delanner finished speaking, she stood up and said goodbye. All right. Girl Luo, let's go get those free stuff. In my mind. Suya laughed. Although hundreds of millions of dollars were spent, it was not his own money, so it was almost like getting it for free. Luo Qinghuan was also in a very good mood at the moment. She finally understood why Suya said that getting S*X for free could make people happy. At least she was very happy now. Tianbao Holy Pavilion. Inside a secret room. Miss Luo, these are the items you got from the auction. They are all in this storage ring. Yuehua looked at the beautiful girl in the room, then slowly placed a storage ring on the table. Luo Qinghuan picked it up, sensed it for a while, and then nodded with satisfaction. He also handed over a storage ring, which was filled with spirit coins. Yuehua just took a look and asked the maid to take it away. After all, no one dared to take pictures of things from Tianbao Holy Pavilion without paying. Miss Luo, it's a pleasure to work with you. Yuehua smiled charmingly, then stood up and prepared to leave the secret room. Etc. Just at this moment, the girl's voice suddenly sounded. Yuehua looked back and looked at him puzzledly. I would like to ask Miss Yuehua to pass on something for me. The girl whispered. Oh. In addition to auctions, our Tianbao Sheng Pavilion also has other businesses, such as finding people and sending items. The moonflower smiles sweetly. Then he raised his eyes and looked at the girl. I wonder what Miss Luo wants to pass on, and to whom? As Yuehua asked, the girl fell silent, but two voices were talking in her mind. Suya. Do you really want to pass this on? Certainly. Suya nodded. All right. The girl gritted her teeth and silently took out something from her storage ring. It's this. This is. Look at Yuehua. 3 black lines appeared on his forehead. Sack. Chapter 88. When she saw the thick sack in the girl's hand, a hint of surprise flashed across Yuehua's beautiful eyes and 3 black lines appeared on her forehead, but her good professional ethics still allowed her to keep smiling. Miss Luo, are you sure that the thing you entrusted me, Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion, to deliver is this, sack? Now. The girl's pretty face flushed and she nodded weakly, feeling so embarrassed that she wanted to dig a hole and crawl into it. Stinky Suya. There's nothing wrong with handing it over. Do you have to hand over a sack? However, Suya replied seriously. What do you know? This is your brother Yi's extreme Dao Emperor weapon. If the master behind the Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion is really his third senior brother, he would definitely be able to recognize his identity as soon as he sees the sack. Well. Miss Luo is really interesting. Seeing the girl's blushing face and nodding her head, Yuehua couldn't help but chuckle. Then she nodded, took out a brand new storage ring, and put the thick sack into it. No fees will be charged for this transfer. Just think of me as your friend, Miss Jialuo from Heavenly Saint Baoj. After saying this, Yuehua just looked at Luo Qinghuan and asked, by the way, who is Miss Luo going to pass this sack to? My Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion can help pass it on in the 9 regions, haha. When saying this, Yuehua's tone was also full of pride. It can be said that the business of their Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion covers the entire 9 regions, and it is almost impossible to find a second one. This. Luo Qinghuan pondered for a moment before saying, this item is to be handed over to, the head of your pavilion. I am the head of Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion. Yue Hua was stunned. Pavilion Master Qin Feng. The head of the Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion in the Desolate Sky Territory is Qin Feng. No. Luo Qinghuan shook his head. I'm not referring to the branch Pavilion Master, but the real Master of Tianbao Holy Pavilion. What? As soon as these words came out, a trace of surprise flashed across Yue Hua's beautiful eyes, and her red lips grew bigger. My Heavenly Saint Pavilion's Chief Pavilion Master? Not to mention me, even Pavilion Master Qin Feng rarely sees me. The Chief Pavilion Master is extremely mysterious, I'm afraid. Speaking of this, Yue Hua showed an embarrassment on her face. No problem. If there is a chance, Sister Yue Hua can just pass it on to me. Luo Qinghuan shook his head and said softly. All right. Seeing that the girl insisted, Yue Hua didn't say anything more and nodded. After finishing the explanation, Luo Qinghuan left the Heavenly Saint Treasure Pavilion and headed towards the Wuji Dynasty Palace. At the same time, when the girl appeared from the Heavenly Saint Pavilion, an old man immediately looked over and then slowly disappeared into the crowd. Saint Child, found her. Royal City. The streets and alleys are crowded with people. The girl in the white dress was walking on the street and suddenly turned into an empty alley. Walking and walking. Suddenly, a sneer sounded from behind. Snort. This girl, I didn't expect you to be so desperate that you dared to enter an empty alley. I saw a young man with a folding fan in his hand and a face as swollen as a pig's head. He was looking at the girl in white dress in front of him with a grim expression. Behind him was an old man with a hooked nose. Saint Child of the Sky. The girl turned around and looked at the two of them. What Stinky Suya said was indeed correct. Sure enough, a good person brought the opportunity. No wonder she was asked to enter an empty alley. When he saw the girl's face clearly, Saint Child of the Sky was stunned, his eyes full of burning passion. I didn't expect there would be an extra benefit. My girl, if you hand over the Dao fruit and go to my sacred land to accompany the Saint Child for one night, perhaps this Saint Child can give you freedom. Hee, otherwise. Saint Child of the Sky sneered, his eyes full of greed. Otherwise, this Saint Child will imprison you in my sacred land and make you my plaything. Although he knew that the girl in front of him was from the same Tianzi box as him, and must also be from a first-rate force, the girl was alone, unlike him who had a bodyguard elder with him, so he probably still had a gap in status. As long as he did it quietly. Who would know that he did it? Saint Child of the Sky, you may be ugly, but you have beautiful thoughts. Luo Qinghuan raised his eyes and wanted to laugh when he saw the pig head that was punched out by Suya. He didn't know what method Suya used. After such a long time, Saint Child's face had not returned to its original state. You. I didn't expect you, a little girl, to be so sharp-tongued. Saint Child's face changed. The girl's words hit his sore spot. He had already consulted an expert to look at his face, which had swollen like a pig's head. The imperial physician said that his face had become necrotic and would never recover. This means, from now on, he doesn't have to be called Saint Child of the Sky anymore, he can just change his name to Saint Child of the Pig Head. This is also from Su Yi's hand. That is to say, the punch given to Saint Child of the Sky simply contained a little bit of the law of death. Hee, but Saint Child likes it. Saint Child licked his lips and laughed lewdly. Mr. Lu, you don't have to do anything. Let this Saint Child meet this little girl. He is already half a step into the realm of creation. Enough to look down on most of the younger generations in the Desolate Sky Territory. Unless encounter those top monsters. Yes. Old Lu nodded, and the aura of a powerful being emanated from him intentionally or unintentionally. Rest assured. This Saint Child will be gentle and considerate to women now. When I capture you and bring you back to the sacred land of the sky, this Saint Child will still be gentle and considerate to women. Ha 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 ha. With an obscene laugh, the folding fan in the hand of the sacred land of the sky became extremely sharp and attacked the girl directly. Seeing this, the girl simply took out a sword with a pitch-black blade, and then swung the sword with an expressionless face. I saw an inch of sword intent breaking through the air. Hee. That's it. Seeing this ordinary sword, Saint Child of the Sky sneered, not taking it seriously at all, and the folding fan in his hand became sharper. Wrong. However, not far away, old Liu's eyes fell on the sword intent swung by Luo Qinghuan, his brows furrowed, and his expression became more solemn. Saint Child, be careful. Her sword intent is not simple. It's just a 1-inch sword intent, what's so difficult about it? Saint Child frowned, but didn't care at all. Just an inch. He is about the same size as his brother, so what is there to be afraid of? Clang. However, just when this thought just came to his mind, suddenly, a cold light flashed across the 1-inch sword intent. During the flight, the sword intent continued to expand, and finally expanded to dozens of meters. What? See this scene? Saint Child's face changed, and he subconsciously raised the sharpened folding fan in his hand to block his chest. Boom. However, when sword intent passes through, the folding fan in his hand was instantly broken into two, and even a groove appeared on his chest, with blood flowing out. One could vaguely see his heart beating in the groove. Puff. You. Creation realm. A person at the creation realm actually resorts to such means. How despicable. Saint Child of the Sky fell heavily to the ground, spurting out a mouthful of blood, and glared at Luo Qinghuan in disbelief. Thank you for the compliment. We. The girl smiled sweetly. As Suya said, this is called lowering the enemy's vigilance first, and then defeating the enemy with one move. Chapter 89. Presumptuous. How dare you hurt my sacred land, Saint Child, at this time? Old Lu could no longer sit still, and with the aura of a powerful being bursting out, he formed his hands into eagle claws and attacked Luo Qinghuan fiercely. Mr. Lu, save me. Seeing old Lu take action, Saint Child of the Sky seemed to have seen a savior, with a hint of joy in his eyes. However, this look of joy did not last long. When old Lu attacked, the girl suddenly raised her hand, ignoring the terrifying aura of the powerful. The dark spirit chi turned into a giant hand, and she grabbed old Liu's throat and hung him in the air. You are also in the realm of great power. Old Lu struggled desperately, but was restrained and could not move at all. The look in his eyes when he looked at the girl was full of fear. In his eyes, the girl in front of him seemed like a different person. The look in her eyes when she looked up at him became extremely cold, and there was even a hint of death in her dark eyes. This is Suya who came on the scene at the critical moment. Die on your own. Suya glanced at Mr. Lu indifferently. He had no interest in taking action himself for a mere 1 star in the great power realm. Sound drop. He simply threw old Lu to the ground. If you let old Lu die, will he die? Mr. Lu, hurry up and kill her. Hearing this, Saint Child on the side started to roar hysterically. This old man, this old man. However, at this moment, old Lu seemed to have heard the whispers of the devil. His body was unable to move and black air appeared in his eyes. Then the black air became thicker and spread throughout his body. The next moment. Ah! With a scream, old Liu's entire vitality was devoured by the black air. Hiss! See this scene. Saint Child's face suddenly turned extremely pale, and his eyes were filled with deep disbelief. This. What is going on? A powerful person in the realm of great power died just like that because of a word from the girl in front of him? This FG death is too easy, isn't it? You are simply a monster. Saint Child of the Sky looked at the girl in front of him with fear in his eyes. Really? Suya smiled kindly. Suya, what was that just now? So strong. And at this moment, when the little soul in the white dress that holds the soul saw this scene, her beautiful eyes were suddenly filled with stars. The law of death. Suya explained with a chuckle. The law of death? What is that? One of the laws of nature. You will understand it naturally when you come into contact with the Emperor realm. Suya smiled and said softly. Oh. Does this heavenly law have to reach the Emperor realm before it can be lifted to its threshold? The girl nodded and then asked curiously. This one. That's how it should be. Suya nodded slightly. If Luo Qinghuan could treat the law of death as good fortune when she was in the realm of creation, perhaps she would be able to master some of the power of the law of death when she was in the realm of creation. But it's just thought. It is indeed a bit difficult to actually achieve. Alright. Suya shook his head, then glanced at the saint child beside him, whose eyes were filled with fear. Girl Luo, I'll leave this guy to you. After Suya logged off, Luo Qinghuan looked towards the sky at Saint Child. No. Don't kill me. Auntie, this Saint Child was wrong. Seeing the girl's gaze, Saint Child was afraid that he would suffer the same fate as old Luo, so he ignored his injuries and begged for mercy. Don't worry. I won't kill you. Hearing this, Saint Child of the Sky let out a long, heavy sigh of relief. At this moment, the girl's voice sounded again. After all, you are such a nice person. I'm such a nice person. Saint Child of the Sky was stunned. Yes. If you didn't sponsor me with so many spirit coins, how could I have bought that Dao fruit and other things? So that's what I mean. Saint Child, you are such a good person. Luo Qinghuan showed a sweet smile and looked at the Saint Child in the sky. At this time, Saint Child of the Sky, who was given the nice guy card, finally reacted after being stunned for a while. This Saint Child's storage ring, and that punch, were you responsible? You're welcome. The girl smiled. Puff. Seeing the girl's smile, Saint Child of the Sky finally spat out a mouthful of blood. His last breath also dissipated along with the spurt of blood, and the life force in his eyes gradually faded. Seeing this scene, Luo Qinghuan couldn't help but sigh. He died. But you can't blame me. Since she said she wouldn't kill him, she definitely wouldn't kill him. After all, Luo Qinghuan never lies. I will only choose to send Saint Child of the Sky to the afterlife. Luo Qinghuan completes his transformation to darkness. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 100 points of blackening value. Accompanied by the system sound. A wisp of black gas poured into the small tower. One step closer to reshaping the body. Blackening reward, when tampering with the creation of heaven and earth and seizing the energy of creation of heaven and earth, the host can manually tamper with the creation of heaven and earth. Do you want to invest it in Luo Qinghuan? Just at this moment, the system sound rang again. When Suye heard the system's words, a gleam of light immediately flashed in his eyes. Manually tamper with the creation of heaven and earth? This is good. The system is really a timely rain, whatever you want will come true. Good. Suye collected it and did not choose to invest immediately. After all, that piece of good fortune Dao fruit has not been planted in the longevity medicine field yet, and it will take some time for Luo Qinghuan to seize the good fortune of heaven and earth. All right. Girl Luo, clean up the scene and then leave. Suye said. Immediately. One of them used the heaven-swallowing demon technique to devour the cultivation origins of Saint Child of the Sky and Old Luo, while the other used the immortal soul technique to devour the soul origins of the two. You can say that Saint Child and Lu Lao died completely. This is the first time I use the word completely clean to describe the appearance of death. After cleaning up the scene, the two left. Suye obtained nearly 10,000 cultivation origins again, and planned to invest it in Luo Qinghuan next time he had the opportunity. Return to the quiet courtyard of the palace. Suye immediately asked Luo Qinghuan to enter the Kunlun realm, find the longevity medicine field, and plant the good fortune Dao fruit there. Suye, how long do you think it will take for this Dao fruit to mature? Looking at the Dao fruit buried in the soil, Luo Qinghuan couldn't help but ask curiously. It will probably take a few days or 10 days. Suye thought for a moment and replied. After the longevity medicine field was strengthened through the system, its ability to grow rapidly became even stronger. 500 years is just a short moment for the longevity medicine field. What a pity. This thing is only useful for spirit medicine. If it could be useful to people, he would have planted Luo Qinghuan in it long ago. Maybe after a few decades of farming, Luo girl will become an emperor. Certainly. This is just a thought. Luo Qinghuan? Chapter 90. Royal City. The deepest part of the Wuji Divine Dynasty's palace. Father, tell me the truth. The person in the imperial box in Heavenly Saint Pavilion just now should be you, right? Dilaner hugged Ditien's arm and asked while shaking him. Ditien glanced at his little daughter and patted her head lovingly. Father. What do you want the Emperor's palace for? We in the Divine Dynasty already have an imperial weapon, so why would we spend a huge amount of money to auction off a semi-imperial weapon? Especially a semi-imperial weapon whose function is unknown. Dilaner looked at Ditien in confusion. This one. Ditien was silent for a moment. Under Dilaner's expectant gaze, he slowly uttered 4 words. You can be willful if you have money. Dilaner. She clenched the long whip in her hand. If the old man in front of her was not her father, she would probably swing the whip uncontrollably. This emperor-suppressing coffin certainly has its uses. De Tian shook his head. All right. As soon as Delanner saw her father's mysterious look, she knew that her father knew but would not tell her, so she gave up asking further. The person in the same Tianzi box with you should be Miss Luo, right? At this time, De Tian glanced at Delanner and asked. Yes. Delanner nodded and said seriously, Miss Luo is still a rich woman. She is generous and spends money like water. She seems to be richer than me. It seems that Miss Luo is indeed not simple. De Tian frowned slightly. Luo Qinghuan is just a prodigy of Xuanyan holy sect, but he is richer than the prodigy of the top forces, which is enough to prove that he is not simple. After Delanner coaxed and persuaded her old man to give her some more spirit coins, she left with satisfaction. De Tian just narrowed his eyes. Then he took a step into the void and disappeared in an instant. When he appeared again, he was already in the center of the earth filled with lava. There seemed to be an invisible fire burning fiercely around him. When De Tian appeared here, even the spirit chi around him began to burn. But De Tian didn't care. He raised his eyes slightly, and saw that there was a tall tower standing on the top of this lava space, as if suppressing this place, and there were several iron chains extending from the bottom of the tower to the deepest part of the lava center. Every chain was ablaze. Looking along these flaming chains, one can see a palm-sized ball of imperial flame burning fiercely. When he saw the ball of imperial flame, a deep solemnity flashed across De Tian's eyes, and he murmured. Whose severed finger is this? I saw that in this ball of imperial flame, there was actually a severed finger wrapped around it. The broken fingers are slender. It emanates endless violent power. If it weren't for the layers of imperial flames suppressing it, and the spirit chi of heaven and earth still pouring in from the heaven and earth creation tower standing overhead, if this finger were to be pointed out and landed on the territory of their Wuji divine dynasty, I'm afraid their entire divine dynasty would be destroyed in an instant. This broken finger appeared thousands of years ago. Appearing out of thin air. Appeared in the sky above their Wuji divine dynasty. The power of that finger was so great that even a great emperor like him felt palpitations. If he were to be pointed out by it, the divine dynasty would be completely destroyed. So he used all means to seal the severed finger under the tower of creation of heaven and earth, and sealed it with the emperor's flame, in an attempt to exhaust the power of the severed finger. But so many years have passed. The power of the severed finger seemed to have not dissipated at all. On the contrary, a lot of energy was consumed by the tower of creation of heaven and earth and the emperor flame, and even the tower of creation of heaven and earth suffered considerable damage. Since the emperor flame of Emperor Tagaben, the creator of heaven and earth, can't suppress you, I can only add one more thing. Emperor Tian looked extremely solemn. After taking a deep breath, he waved his hand and a pitch-black ancient coffin was sent to suppress the severed finger in the emperor flame. Boom! With the imperial power falling, the severed finger seemed to have finally calmed down. Call. It's not going to work this way. Seeing the broken finger disappear, De Tian couldn't help but sigh and felt a little headache. Originally, he wanted to transfer the severed finger to another place, as long as it was not in his Wuji divine dynasty, but he found that he could not transfer it at all, which also meant that the owner of the severed finger was much stronger than him. Therefore, the only option is to seal it underground in the tower of heaven and earth creation. As long as this severed finger is not removed, it will be like a time bomb, posing a huge threat to their Wuji divine dynasty. I can only hope that Miss Luo can repair the heaven and earth creation tower. Even if it can only be repaired to 30%, it will be enough. De Tian rubbed his temple tiredly. Other sacred land sects either suppress real demons or eternal demon venerables, but when it comes to the Wuji divine dynasty, they suppress a severed finger? This script is wrong, isn't it? And whose severed finger is this? Not to mention the strong ones. The key is still very greedy. Absorbing energy from the tower of creation of heaven and earth and his imperial flame every day. There is only one broken finger left, and you still want to curl it like this. Do you want to let the monk live? It's really a headache. There are still 7 days left before Miss Luo can come and repair the heaven and earth creation tower. De Tian sighed again. A few days later. Wuji Palace. In the small courtyard. Suya has grown bigger, bigger. When the girl's surprised voice sounded, Suya rubbed his sleepy eyes, frowned, and muttered to himself, bigger. What's big? Could it be? It shouldn't be like that. The ancient divine clothing will improve slowly, not this fast. Nothing will go wrong with Luo girl, right? He frowned. Girl Luo, your brother Ye will go online and take a look for himself. You can't rush this, and you don't have to be too self-deprecating. After all, you are still growing up. Inferiority complex? Growing up? You, what are you saying? Hearing Su Yi's serious words, the girl was stunned for a moment, then suddenly reacted. Her pretty face suddenly became extremely red, and she glared at him. Pa. Lecture. I'm talking about Dao fruit, what are you thinking about? Chapter 91. Dao fruit. Su Ye sigh. It turns out that this girl was talking about Dao fruit. He also thought. Cough. To be honest, what your brother Ye was talking about was Dao fruit. Su Ye coughed lightly. The girl immediately showed an expression that said she didn't believe you. Oh. Stinky Su Ye, I've been with you for so long, and I still don't know who you are. Luo Qinghuan folded his arms and sneered. Oh. Then tell me what kind of person brother Ye is. The girl snorted and said, hee, of course you are a. Speaking of this. She paused suddenly. Master, transcendent level master. Thank you for the compliment. Su Ye smiled slightly. Luo Qinghuan. Stinky Su Ye. Don't sneak in and use my voice to praise yourself. Ha ha ha. I won't. Su Ye laughed. He had to sell this sword. After teasing Luo Qinghuan for a while, he took a look at the Dao fruit planted in the longevity medicine field. It was indeed as the girl said, it was indeed much bigger. You can see the great Dao rhyme flowing above, and the aroma is fragrant. It is obviously about to mature. After all, the longevity medicinal field can not only speed up the ripening of Dao fruit, but also help it advance. It looks like it will be mature soon. Su Ye murmured. Su Ye, someone seems to be coming. Just at this moment. Outside the courtyard, Delaner's voice suddenly rang out. Miss Luo, our father asked us to call you. Today is the day when the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower will be opened. When Luo Qinghuan opened the door, he saw Delaner in a leather jacket holding a long whip, and the third Prince Dayun leaning against a tree with his arms folded. Miss Luo. When she saw Luo Qinghuan, Delaner immediately looked over. You've become stronger again. Dayun's gaze also fell. When he felt the girl's breath, his face suddenly changed and he was a little surprised. During this period, under Su Yi's guidance, Luo Qinghuan's strength broke through again and was promoted to 3 stars in the creation realm. It's been a few days, so it's normal for your strength to have improved. Hearing Dayun's words, the girl frowned innocently. This person speaks very strangely. Time is passing, everything is growing, so her cultivation is also improving. Isn't this a very normal thing? After hearing this, Dayun said. The corner of his mouth twitched. Seeing the girl speaking as if it were a matter of course, Dayun almost felt that what she said made sense. If he hadn't looked at his own cultivation which hadn't made any progress in the past 3 months. He almost believed it. That was a close call. But the girl in front of me is a strong opponent. At this moment, Dayun looked at Luo Qinghuan with fighting spirit in his eyes. Third brother. At the side, Delaner rolled her eyes at her third brother in anger and said, don't even think about competing with Miss Luo. You've all been beaten by Miss Luo in the secret realm of the divine weapon. Emperor Yun. All right. Miss Luo, come with us. Delaner finished speaking. He didn't pay any more attention to Dayun who was standing beside him, and just pulled Luo Qinghuan away. Walking and talking. Miss Luo, please ignore my third brother. He is a well-known battle maniac. Whenever he meets someone stronger than him, he wants to fight him, but he can never win. He is a pure masochist. Dayun was hit again, soon. The 3 of them came to the depths of the palace, and saw a towering tower standing there. It was the tower of creation of heaven and earth. And at this moment, many ministers of the Wuji divine dynasty had gathered around the tower of creation of heaven and earth, among whom was Emperor Tian. When he saw the 3 figures, he immediately went to greet them with a group of ministers. Miss Luo. See this scene. Many ministers were shocked. It seems that Miss Luo holds a very important position in front of Emperor Tian. Let alone a mere prodigy of the Xuanyan Holy Church, even if the leader of the Xuanyan Holy Church came, I am afraid that Emperor Tian would not lead the ministers to greet him in person. Senior Tian. Luo Qinghuan nodded slightly, then raised his eyes to look at the tower that reached the sky. Is this the heaven and earth creation tower forged by Senior Shen Bing? That's right. Dityan nodded slightly and looked over. It's a pity that perhaps the time limit is too long and the heaven and earth creation tower has been damaged. The speed at which it condenses the rich spirit chi of heaven and earth is not as fast as before. Dityan concealed the fact that the tower of creation of heaven and earth was actually used to suppress the mysterious severed finger. After all, even the people in Wuji divine dynasty didn't know about this matter. Only he and the absolute core of the divine dynasty knew about it. Telling Luo Qinghuan, a junior, would probably be of no use. He only hoped that Luo Qinghuan could repair 30% of the heaven and earth creation tower. The time limit is too long. Hearing this, Luo Qinghuan frowned slightly and muttered to herself, Senior Dityan, do you have so many prodigies in the Wuji divine dynasty? Logically speaking, the heaven and earth creation tower forged by Senior Shenbing should not be so fragile. Hearing this, Dityan was sweating profusely. Is this Miss Luo so perceptive? You can tell something is wrong just from what he says. However, Dityan just made up a random excuse and didn't explain too much. Immediately, Luo Qinghuan didn't say anything else, but just began to observe the tower of creation of heaven and earth. Seeing this, Dityan and a group of ministers of the divine dynasty did not disturb him, but just followed him silently. Girl Luo, come closer. Just at this moment, Su Yi's voice suddenly sounded in Luo Qinghuan's mind. Hearing this, Luo Qinghuan didn't ask any more questions and walked a few steps towards the heaven and earth creation tower. When Su Yi said to stop, she stopped and asked, What's wrong? I vaguely sense a familiar force. Su Yi frowned. Feeling connected to you. The girl raised her eyebrows. That's right. How do you know? Don't you say that every time. The girl pouted and said silently. Su Yi. In the past, it was the bandits who sensed that there was something here that was destined for him. But now it's different. But one kind. An inexplicably familiar force. But he couldn't really explain what it was like. Miss Luo, how is it? Can it be repaired to 30%? Seeing Luo Qinghuan suddenly approaching the tower of creation of heaven and earth, Dityan thought that she had already started to repair the tower of creation of heaven and earth, and immediately asked impatiently. 30%. The girl frowned. How? Is 30% not even possible? Seeing this, Dityan's heart sank. No problem, 20%, 20% is fine. If it's only 20%, the worst that can happen is that I can use a little more emperor flame to suppress the strange severed finger. Only 20%. It seems. Your Majesty's expectations are in vain. After all, this is a divine weapon passed down by the great emperor himself. How can it only be repaired 20%? This may not be possible. A minister in the crowd frowned, and his tone seemed a little dissatisfied. However, the words haven't been finished yet. He was slapped away by Dityan. Don't worry, Miss Luo. I just personally sent her to the border to herd sheep. Chapter 92. Get everything done. Dityan just said lightly. The girl blinked her eyes. What a great idea to send him into exile personally. If you continue to talk about Miss Luo, I will personally strip you of your official positions and send you to the border to herd sheep one by one. Dityan glanced at the ministers of the Wuji divine dynasty and said lightly. Without Luo Qinghuan, let alone 20%, there would not even be 10%. Yes. Your Majesty. The ministers trembled. Do you think the sheep Dityan was talking about are domestic animals? Then you are totally wrong. But the monster they raised was as big as a mountain and would eat people when it got angry. Senior Dityan, there is something I want to say to Qinghuan, but I don't know if I should say it or not. Luo Qinghuan took a look at the heaven and earth creation tower, and then looked at Dityan. Miss Luo, just tell me. Senior Dityan's requirements are so low. I can obviously restore the tower of creation of heaven and earth to its peak state, but why only ask me to repair it to 20%? The girl looked at Dityan innocently and asked seriously. Emperor Tian. I'll give you a way out. Who knew you were so awesome that you could fix them all? I didn't expect Miss Luo to be able to restore the heaven and earth creation tower to its peak state. A hint of solemnity flashed across Dityan's eyes, and he glanced at Luo Qinghuan with some surprise. Then I'll trouble you, Miss Luo. It should be. After all, Senior Dityan also promised me to enter the Wuji Emperor's mausoleum. The girl smiled sweetly. Seeing the girl's smile, Dityan's heart suddenly trembled, and he always had a bad premonition. Didn't I just promise her the chance to enter the Wuji Emperor's mausoleum? Why does it feel like the entire Wuji Imperial Mausoleum was given to her? Haha. Then let's start, Miss Luo. Luo Qinghuan nodded slightly. Just about to begin. Suddenly, Su Yi's voice rang in my mind. After listening, Luo Qinghuan was stunned for a moment, then raised her eyes to look at Ditian, and said with a smile, Senior Ditian, can you prepare 100 million points of spirit qi? A little. Ditian was stunned. Billions of points. Okay. Ditian nodded without asking any more questions, probably because this much was needed to repair the tower of creation of heaven and earth. He then waved his hand, and a dazzling light flashed along with the storage ring in his hand. A mountain-like pile of spirit stones appeared before our eyes. This is spirit stone, each piece contains extremely rich spirit qi of heaven and earth. When the spirit stones piled up into a small hill, the entire heaven and earth creation tower was suddenly filled with endless and rich spirit qi. So yet, does it take so much spirit qi to repair the heaven and earth creation tower? Luo Qinghuan took a look at the pile of spirit stones and asked curiously. One piece is enough. Suya said lightly. Piece. The girl blinked her beautiful eyes blankly. Just $1, then you say 100 million? Girl Luo, do you understand the principle of accumulating little by little to make a lot? To this, Suya just wanted to teach Luo Qinghuan the truth of accumulating little by little. Otherwise, how do you think he started from scratch when he migrated here? Understand. But here, it seems there are quite a few too. Luo Qinghuan weakly glanced at the pile of spirit stones. Yes, a little bit adds up to a lot, and a lot adds up to billions. Suya replied with a smile. Who says that little by little can add up to a lot? That's too slow. Luo Qinghuan. After a while, her eyes changed from blank to bright. I see. I learned spicy. Alright. Girl Luo, let your brother Ye come. Suya took a look at the heaven and earth creation tower and said. You won't let me come. The girl was stunned. She had already comprehended the magic weapon forging technique of Senior Shenbing in the past few days, and was just about to show off her skills in front of the stinky Suya. Need not. Your brother is here at night. Suya smiled mysteriously and said, when your brother Ye finishes repairing it, you will know why. Oh okay Ovo. The girl nodded and logged off obediently. As the look in the girl's eyes changed, that clear stupidity soon turned into a cold look. Then, she walked slowly towards the tower of creation of heaven and earth and reached out to touch the tower. Seeing this scene, Ditian couldn't help but be stunned. Why did he feel that the girl in front of him seemed like a different person? When he started to repair it, his expression was completely different from before and he was extremely serious. Could it be? Is this professionalism? Now, the ministers around him didn't even dare to breathe. All eyes looked over there. Soon, as the girl's enormous energy surged, a huge formation appeared beneath her and continued to expand. In just a blink of an eye, it covered the entire tower of creation. This is weapon repair array. See this scene. Ditian finally felt at ease. The existence of this formation shows that Miss Luo has truly mastered the inheritance of the magical weapon Great Emperor. At the same time, the system voice sounded in Su Yi's mind as he was quietly logging in. Irreparable magic weapon has been detected, the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower. Do you want to start repair? Ditian thought it was inheritance and hard work. Little did they know. He's just a cheater who's cheating silently. Repair. Suya said lightly. Even without the system, he could still repair the Tower of Creation. But the problem is that these spirit stones have to be consumed. So, why not turn it on if there is a cheat? You can also get a few spirit stones for Luo Yeta to practice. Soon, with the dazzling light emitting from the formation, covering the entire Tower of Creation of Heaven and Earth, Emperor Tian and the ministers of the Divine Dynasty saw that the instrument of the Tower of Creation of Heaven and Earth had been repaired. At the same time, the pile of spirit stones was also decreasing silently. See this scene. Ditian frowned and couldn't help but sigh. It seems that repairing this Heaven and Earth Creation Tower is indeed a huge project. The spirit stone is consumed so quickly. However, in Kunlun territory, a certain little soul in a white dress was looking at the spirit stones being passed in one by one, with shining eyes. Hey, one spirit stone after another. This is what Suya said about accumulating a lot to make a billion. Soon. When the last spirit stone is consumed. Under the nervous gazes of Dityen and a group of Divine Dynasty ministers, the girl slowly stood up, and the light of the weapon repairing array beneath her was gradually fading. Miss Luo, is it repaired? See this scene? Dityen couldn't help but ask. One step away. Suya shook his head. Then he silently performed the divine rank item forging technique. The Heaven and Earth Creation Tower has been repaired. Host can add the following entry: super speed. Adding this entry can greatly increase the speed at which the monks in the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower absorb spirit chi. Tower Master, choose one person to become the Tower Master. All monks who enter the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower for cultivation must offer the spirit chi they have obtained from cultivation. The spirit chi energy obtained by the Tower Master will be greatly enhanced. Immediately. Suya didn't hesitate at all. Directly add 2 entries and bind the Tower Master to Luo Qinghuan. Chapter 93. Alright. After adding the 2 entries, Suya looked at Dityen with a smile. The repair of the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower has been completed. Not only that, I have also improved it a little bit. Improved? Hearing the words of the girl in front of him, Dityen frowned and looked at her in confusion. Now that we have entered the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower, the speed at which cultivators can absorb spirit chi has been greatly enhanced. Suya glanced at the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower and explained. In other words, the speed of practicing in the Tower of Heaven and Earth Creation is much faster than before. Dityen narrowed his eyes, a little surprised. Unexpectedly. Asking Miss Luo to repair the Tower of Creation of Heaven and Earth resulted in an unexpected surprise? Certainly. Suya nodded. Dayun, you go. Dityen immediately looked at Dayun, pointed at him, and then pointed at the Tower of Creation of Heaven and Earth. Dayun nodded, and then walked into the Tower of Heaven and Earth Creation under the expectant gazes of everyone. Suya, did you really improve the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower, at the same time? The place where souls are housed, the little soul in the white dress also asked Suya curiously. Certainly. And it's not just an improvement. Suya smiled mysteriously. I have bound you as the Tower Master. When Dayun comes out, you can sense the changes in the spirit chi in your body, Luo girl. Tower Master. The girl was stunned. Soon. There was movement in the Tower of Creation of Heaven and Earth. When Dayun came out of the tower, he didn't say a word, but the shocked and incredible expression on his face said it all. Third brother. Is what Miss Luo said true? Delaner asked impatiently. Dayun nodded heavily and looked at the smiling girl in shock. After Miss Luo's improvement, the speed at which I can improve while practicing in the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower is several times faster than before. If I continue like this, I'm afraid that in a few months, I will be able to break through to the 3 stars of the creation realm. Hiss. Is it true? Miss Luo is truly a gifted girl. Not only was she able to repair the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower forged by Senior Divine Weapon, she was even able to make some improvements on it. Ha 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 ha. The national strength of our Wuji Divine Dynasty will become even stronger in the future. Around. The ministers of the Divine Dynasty were also shocked. At first, many of them were against Dityen using the admission to Wuji Emperor's mausoleum as a thank you gift, but now it seems that, let alone entering Wuji Emperor's mausoleum, even if Dityen allowed Luo Qinghuan to dance on the graves of the ancestors of Wuji Emperor's mausoleum, they would raise their hands and feet in approval. Hey! Suya, why do I feel an extremely strong spirit chi pouring in, at the same time? The girl also noticed something unusual. This is the benefit of being a Tower Master. Suya smiled and explained, all cultivators who enter the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower to practice must offer the spirit chi they have gained from their practice, and the energy of the spirit chi they have gained will be greatly enhanced. So strong. The girl's eyes widened. Could this be the legendary thing where you can become stronger just by lying down? Miss Luo, my Wuji Divine Dynasty owes you a big favor. Dityen looked at Luo Qinghuan solemnly and said in a deep voice. The girl in front of him not only helped him repair the Tower of Creation of Heaven and Earth, but also helped him improve the national strength of the Divine Dynasty in disguise. It is not an exaggeration to owe her a big favor. As for the Wuji Emperor's mausoleum, Miss Luo can go there anytime. No hurry. Suya shook his head and looked at Dityen. Since I repaired this Heaven and Earth Creation Tower, I should be qualified to practice in it, right? There is still an opportunity he left on the 10th floor. It's just right for Luo Yeta to get it. Certainly. Dityan nodded. Whenever Miss Luo comes, she can enter and practice at any time. That's fine. It just so happens that I have another opportunity to break through, so I'll use the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower to break through. Suya nodded, and then silently returned the control of his body to Luo Qinghuan. After hearing this, De Yun said, etc. Miss Luo, didn't you just have a breakthrough a few days ago? Isn't this just a coincidence? Dayun, Lanner. You and Miss Luo should enter the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower together. Dityan said this to his obedient daughter and rebellious son standing beside him. Yes. Father. When the three of them entered the Tower of Creation of Heaven and Earth, a strong scent of Heaven and Earth spirit chi rushed towards them. Such a strong spirit chi! Delanner couldn't help but exclaimed, and looked at Luo Qinghuan in amazement. This Heaven and Earth Creation Tower is indeed much stronger than before. Miss Luo, you are really amazing. Although this was done by Suyat, the girl was different after all. If it was the previous Luo Qinghuan, her face might have blushed because of the compliment. But it's different now. She would just put her hands behind her back and hum, it's okay, just make do with it. Hey! What's this? Sudden. When Luo Qinghuan saw the stone pillar in the middle of the first floor, she frowned slightly and looked up. I saw that there were names engraved on the jade pillar, and next to the names seemed to be the number of floors and ranking of the tower. Emperor Heaven, the 9th level. Emperor Wuji, the 8th level. Emperor War, the 8th level. Delanner, the 7th floor. Emperor Cloud, 7th floor. The girl looked at the names one by one. These are the highest levels that my Wuji Shenchao prodigy has ever reached. Delanner explained on the side. I see. Luo Qinghuan nodded thoughtfully. Then he looked towards the top of the jade pillar. There seems to be a vague name there. That is. We are not sure about this, but we don't think it is Prodigy's name. It may be left by the great emperor when he was testing the magic weapon. After all, the 10th floor is just a legend. What's more, this tower only has 9 floors, so where does the 10th floor come from? Aside. Delanner shook her head. Really? Luo Qinghuan frowned. Actually. That name was left by your brother yet. At this time, Suya said silently in his mind. Chapter 94. I knew it. A look of as expected appeared on Luo Qinghuan's face. Only someone as bad as Suya would be so high profile. Doesn't the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower only have 9 floors? How can there be a 10th floor? The girl frowned slightly and asked. If there is no 10th floor, then just build the 10th floor yourself. Suya chuckled. Build it, yourself. You'll find out soon. Suya looked mysterious and said with a smile, besides, your brother Ye left a good treasure for you on the 10th floor. Good. The girl nodded obediently. Soon, De Yun and Delanner took Luo Qinghuan to the depths of the first floor and told her about the things that needed to be paid attention to in the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower. There is a kind of pressure between the layers. The higher you go, the denser the spirit chi becomes. Okay. I see. Luo Qinghuan murmured and nodded slightly. Miss Luo, I know you are extremely talented, but the pressure from the creation tower of heaven and earth is extraordinary. Just do your best. Delanner looked at her and reminded her. I'll do my best. Luo Qinghuan nodded. Delanner. She suddenly felt something was wrong. She always felt that the girl in front of her had misunderstood her. She said to stop at the right time and try one's best within the limit, and the girl seemed to understand what it meant to try one's best. Then I'll go first, you two. Luo Qinghuan said something, turned around and walked towards the stairs to the second floor. Wait a minute, Miss Luo. At this time, Delanner reminded again. There are ancient texts on the walls of each floor of this heaven and earth creation tower. My Wuji divine dynasty calls them the ancient divine texts. If you perceive them carefully, you may gain some enlightenment. Ancient divine text. Luo Qinghuan was stunned for a moment, then nodded slightly and kept it in mind. When I get in later, I will carefully copy and pack up those ancient sacred texts. Cough. Girl Luo, actually, you don't have to remember these ancient divine texts, because they were written by your brother yet at random. Who knows what the Wuji divine dynasty regards them as the so-called ancient divine texts? In my mind. Suya coughed lightly. Luo Qinghuan. Why does this stinky Suya have such a strong sense of evil? Miss Lanner, has anyone in your Wuji divine dynasty ever realized the ancient divine text? Luo Qinghuan couldn't help but ask. When she thought about the people of Wuji divine dynasty treating Suyi's random writings as supreme divine writings, she felt like laughing. Certainly. Delanner nodded and spoke seriously. Let's not talk about our ancestors of the Wuji divine dynasty. Among the younger generation of this generation, except for me and my third brother, my eldest brother and second sister have all been inspired by the ancient divine text on the wall of the heaven and earth creation tower and have gained enlightenment. Luo Qinghuan was stunned. Degree, are you stupid? In my mind. Suya smiled playfully. Although it was written by your brother yet, it is at least written by the great emperor himself, so it must have a certain effect on enlightenment. Even if the great emperor farts, it may be able to make ordinary monks realize it. Do you want to try it? Ugh, no. Luo Qinghuan quickly shook his head. Immediately. After saying something to Delanner, he turned and walked towards the second floor of the Tower of Heaven and Earth Creation. Third brother, with Miss Luo's talent, which level can she reach the first time? Delanner raised the long whip in her hand and asked Diyun curiously. Her talent is better than yours and mine. You and I only reached the 5th floor the first time, but with her talent, she should be at least the 6th floor. Diyun crossed his arms and snorted coldly. Yo. Third brother, you actually admit that Miss Luo talent is better than you. Hearing this, Delanner looked at Diyun with a joking expression. Snort? I will never say someone who is stronger than me is weak. Diyun snorted coldly. All right. Let's get going too and go to the 6th floor to meet Miss Luo. The two were just about to leave. Suddenly. Boom. A loud roar suddenly came from the jade pillar on the 1st floor. The two were stunned and looked over immediately. Suddenly, a name appeared on the stone pillar. Luo Qinghuan, 6th floor. This is Miss Luo. Diyun frowned. It is indeed the 6th floor, which is consistent with my guess, but why so fast? It had only been a few minutes since Luo Qinghuan parted ways with the other two, and she had already rushed to the 6th floor? Was this Miss Luo a rat? If I remember correctly, it took you 3 full days to reach the 6th floor, right? Aside. Delanner covered her mouth and laughed. This gap seems to be a bit big. The corner of Diyun's mouth twitched. He glanced at the long whip tied around the latter's waist, and suddenly had an urge to snatch the whip and whip his stupid sister hard. That's all. After all, she is my biological sister. FK, third brother, look. Just at this moment, Delanner covered her mouth and exclaimed. Fourth sister, you are a daughter of the royal family. Why are you making such a fuss? Diyun reprimanded. Then he looked at it calmly. The next moment, AFK sound was heard, even louder than Delanner's exclamation. FK. On the stone pillar, Luo Qinghuan's name was emitting a ray of light. Under the cover of this light, her name moved forward again. This is the 8th floor. When they saw this scene, their expressions suddenly became extremely interesting. But in a split second, the girl actually reached the 8th floor? Even though they had been practicing in the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower for such a long time, they could only stop at the 7th floor. The pressure from the 8th floor was so terrifying that even if two people just touched each other slightly, they would be blasted away by the pressure. But the girl not only adapted to the pressure of the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower in such a short time, but she even entered the 8th floor? Hiss. Third brother, isn't Miss Luo a little too evil? Is she still the same level of prodigy? Delanner widened her beautiful eyes. This. Diyun's face was also extremely solemn. Even his Wuji Divine Dynasty's monstrous eldest prince had barely entered the 8th level not long ago, and that was after so many attempts. But now, Miss Luo entered the 8th floor so, simply, easily, and quickly. She opened it, now. Luo Qinghuan had already given the two of them a small shock. Third brother, do you think Miss Luo would just go directly to the 9th floor? At this time, Delanner patted her plump chest with lingering fear and asked in a low voice. Emperor Yun. Not really. He shook his head. Throughout the ages, there have been only a few people in our Wuji Divine Dynasty who have been able to enter the 9th level, but they are all great emperors. Could it be that Miss Luo has the posture of the great emperor. Brother San, please don't say it. Please don't say it. Just at this moment, Delaner's trembling voice rang out. Her eyes fell on the jade pillar. The girl's name was once again shrouded in light and changed. The two siblings were petrified instantly when they saw this scene. What the hell? Third brother, could it be that Miss Ben has the law to follow his words? Chapter 95. At the same time, outside the Tower of Heaven and Earth, Emperor Tian has already made arrangements for all his ministers, ordering them to go to the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower to practice more often in the future. Miss Luo is truly a benefactor of our divine dynasty. Not only did she help us repair the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower, she even strengthened it to help our divine dynasty become even stronger. A group of ministers of the divine dynasty also sighed. Miss Luo is indeed a noble lady of my divine dynasty. Tian nodded. The most important thing is that she directly restored the Tower of Heaven and Earth to its most perfect state. In this way, the suppression by the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower would be more stable, and he would not have to worry too much about the seal of the strange severed finger loosening. Call. Tian breathed a sigh of relief. Just want to leave and go into the lava underground. But suddenly, the entire Heaven and Earth Creation Tower suddenly shook violently. What's going on? Miss Luo just repaired the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower, and now it's broken again. When the body of the Tower of Creation of Heaven and Earth trembled, it also attracted the attention of a group of ministers of the divine dynasty. They all frowned and looked away. This is... Tian also looked in that direction. Sudden. His eyes fixed, his expression became extremely solemn, and he said in surprise. Has anyone entered the 9th floor? What? The 9th floor? Who? The 3rd prince or the 4th princess? When they heard what Tian said, all the ministers of the divine dynasty were filled with astonishment and looked over quickly. Not them. Tian shook his head and said in a deep voice, it's already good enough for the two of them to reach the 8th floor. As for the 9th floor, it's even more unrealistic. Not the 3rd prince and the 4th princess. That would be... The ministers of the divine dynasty were stunned for a moment, their faces suddenly changed, and then they reacted. It's Miss Luo. Tian said with a serious expression. He found that every time he thought he saw through Luo Qinghuan would always slap him in the face in an unexpected way. Since you can reach the 9th floor of the Tower of Heaven and Earth Creation, that meant that the girl's qualifications were no less than his. He will be able to achieve the throne in the future. In the future, the Xuanyan Holy Sect may be able to rank among the top forces. Emperor Tian murmured and sighed. The future great emperor. Hiss. We have witnessed the birth of a future great emperor. What a horrible talent. I didn't expect that such a gifted girl could come from a mere Xuanyan Holy Sect. Why don't we bring Miss Luo to our Wuji divine dynasty and train her personally? Or let the 3rd prince and the 1st prince marry her? At this time, among the shocked ministers, an old minister couldn't help but make a suggestion. That's the future great emperor. Are the 3rd prince and the 1st prince a good match? Another minister touched his nose and asked weakly. Suddenly, all the ministers around fell silent at the same time. It's a bit unworthy. You guys retreat, don't disturb Miss Luo's practice. Tian glanced at the ministers indifferently. Yes. All the ministers of the divine dynasty nodded. FK. Your Majesty, look. Why did an invisible staircase appear on the top of the 9th floor? There's also a courtyard. Just at this moment, an exclamation sounded without warning. Emperor Tian and a group of ministers looked over when they heard the sound and were instantly shocked. I saw that the 9th floor was already covered in brilliant light. As the stairs extended, a courtyard appeared above the Tower of Heaven and Earth, as if forming the so-called 10th floor. The 10th floor isn't a legend. At this moment, Tian's pupils suddenly shrank. The Tower of Creation of Heaven and Earth. 9th floor. The spirit chi of Heaven and Earth is rich and endless. A graceful girl is sitting cross-legged. Along the way, the girl seemed to have reached the 9th floor very quickly, but in fact she stopped for a while on each floor. After all, Suya said that these spirit chi should not be wasted. Luo Qinghuan also carried forward the fine tradition of diligence and thrift. Pack up the spirit chi from each level and take it away before moving on to the next level. Suya. I have almost absorbed all the spirit chi from the 9th level. How do I enter the 10th level? Luo Qinghuan finished the heaven-swallowing demon technique, and after the black energy on her body dissipated, she asked Suya in her mind. Create a road where there is no road, build a tower where there is no tower. Girl Luo, use your sense to sense the entire heaven and earth creation tower, and just sense the invisible 10th floor. Suya said with a chuckle. Good. I'll try. The girl nodded. Sit cross-legged. With the perception of the instrument's intention, Luo Qinghuan seemed to see that the entire tower was endowed with such energy. Then she gathered all the instrument's intentions together as Suya had said. For a while, the entire 9th floor was shrouded in light. Invisible steps appeared at the top of the 9th floor. A courtyard stands above the tower of creation of heaven and earth. It is the so-called 10th floor. Chapter 96. This girl has really high stats. See this scene. Suya couldn't help but sigh at Luo Qinghuan's high level of understanding. She is an outstanding hero among the younger generation in the desolate sky realm. Not only does she have high talent values, but she also has a lot of cheats. How can other prodigy play her? Just order it. Suya, am I successful? After sensing the invisible meaning of the tower of creation of heaven and earth, the girl immediately opened her beautiful eyes impatiently. Certainly. Suya smiled and nodded. Okay, girl Luo, let's go to the 10th floor. The girl nodded obediently and stood up. At the same time, outside the tower of heaven and earth creation. This. What is this situation? The 10th floor. How come? The ministers of the divine dynasty had their eyes wide open in disbelief, and even their words were stuttering. Lord Su, you hit me with a punch, but why do I feel like I'm dreaming? A minister frowned and looked at the magnificent and shining courtyard, saying in disbelief. No problem, Master Zhang. Minister Su rolled up his sleeves, revealing a mouthful of yellow teeth, and nodded with a smile. But just about to clench his fist. Sudden. A fist as big as a sandbag enlarged in his pupils. Oops. Minister Su immediately covered his eyes and screamed. Does it hurt? Minister Zhang asked with a concerned look on his face. You don't talk crap. Besides, didn't you say that I would give you a punch? Minister Su was furious. Haha, I just thought that if you feel pain, it means that I am not dreaming, so why should I feel pain myself? Minister Zhang said with a smile. You horse. I'm going to report you 3 times. Then I will give you 10 reports. 20 copies of your report. 300 copies of your report. The 2 old ministers kept cursing, which made the other ministers nearby suffer. After all, while you have to marvel at the so-called 10th floor, you also have to take time to watch the 2 of them scolding each other. You 2 shut up. Otherwise, I will send you to the frontier to herd sheep. It was not until Dityan gave them a cold look that the 2 old ministers calmed down. The 10th floor. Could it be that, what is recorded on that jade stone pillar is not just Senior Shenbing's evil taste, but real? After scolding the 2 of them, Emperor Tian looked towards the tower of creation of heaven and earth with a serious look and could not help but mutter. He had also been to the 9th floor. But I never saw the so-called 10th floor at all, so naturally I thought there was no such thing as a 10th floor. Just at this moment, inside the tower of heaven and earth, 2 panicked figures ran out. It was De Yun and De Lanner. Father! Miss Luo stopped acting. She just opened it. She reached the 9th floor. Oh! However, when the 2 finished speaking, they found that Dityan and the ministers of the divine dynasty did not show any surprise on their faces. They just said oh in a calm and relaxed manner. See this scene. The 2 of them suddenly lost their composure. Father, that's the 9th floor, and you guys are just acting like this. Or, going to the 9th floor is just basic training. Then what is this about me and my 4th sister? De Yun said with some surprise. Hearing this, Dityan looked at his 3rd son as if he was a fool, and then silently pointed to the top of the heaven and earth creation tower. Because Miss Luo has already climbed to the 10th floor, why should we react because she stepped onto the 9th floor? After these words were spoken, De Yun and De Lanner were both stunned. The next moment. What the hell? The 10th floor. Does the heaven and earth creation tower really have a 10th floor? The 2 people's faces suddenly became extremely wonderful. Is Miss Luo crazy about killing? Your Majesty, Look! Just at this moment, accompanied by the exclamation of a minister of the divine dynasty, suddenly, a graceful figure appeared on the invisible stairs, and she took one step at a time, and finally entered the invisible courtyard under the attention of everyone. That is Miss Luo. Everyone looked at it, their eyes full of confusion. What kind of opportunities will there be in this 10th floor? When Luo Qinghuan appeared in the 10th floor of this courtyard, he immediately felt the rich spirit qi of heaven and earth here constantly flowing towards him. The biggest difference between this 10th floor and other floors is the remaining layers still need to absorb spirit qi themselves. But once you reach the 10th floor, spirit qi will be automatically absorbed, and the entire heaven and earth creation tower will seem to serve only you. Hey! This is... Luo Qinghuan looked with her beautiful eyes, and saw a figure in black sitting in the courtyard, motionless, like a sculpture. The girl looked at this figure and it looked more and more familiar. Stinky Su Yet. That's right. It's your brother Yet. In my mind. Su Ye said with a chuckle. Then he shook his head. He looked at the figure in black and sighed. This is a great emperor's perception that I left behind. I didn't expect that after so many years, no one has reached the 10th level to perceive it. Instead, you, a girl, got a good deal. What do you mean by cheap? Hearing this, the girl pouted and immediately became unhappy. Then she raised her red lips slightly and spoke seriously. This is called destiny with me. Hearing these extremely familiar words, Su Yi's mouth twitched slightly. This girl has learned bad things. Wrong. Learned it well. And at this moment, the girl had quietly circled to the front of the black-clothed figure, as if wanting to get a glimpse of his true appearance, but unfortunately, it was all pitch black, like chaos. Seeing this scene, the girl exclaimed it was a pity. Hee, can you just look at your brother Yi's handsome face whenever you want? Seeing this, Su Ye said jokingly. This was just his perception of the great emperor, how could it contain his true appearance? Then how should I realize it? Beat him up. There was a glimmer of cunning in the girl's beautiful eyes, and she looked eager to try. Su Ye raised his eyebrows. It looks like this girl's butt is itchy. Since this is the great emperor's enlightenment left by your brother Yet, why do you need to understand it? I will just give it to you directly. Su Ye smiled and shook his head. But the most urgent task right now is not the great emperor perception. After all, the great emperor perception can only be used when you break through the great emperor. I see. Luo Qinghuan nodded his little head. Girl Luo, that Dao fruit should be ripe. You can take it out. With the help of the rich spirit qi of the 10th layer, it will help you seize the fortune of heaven and earth and become a true Daoist master. Su Ye warned. Luo Qinghuan nodded slightly, and immediately took out the ripe Dao fruit from the Kunlun mirror. Su Ye looked over, and the information about this Dao fruit immediately appeared before his eyes. Chapter 97. Dao fruit, ripe. It has been planted in the longevity medicinal field, has matured and completed the upgrade. Originally, the Dao fruit was only enough to seize 20% of the heaven and earth's fortune, but now it can help the user seize 50% of the heaven and earth's fortune. Oh! Is it increased directly from the original 20% to 50%? Su Ye raised his eyebrows. That is to say, as long as Luo Qinghuan can obtain another 50% of the energy of heaven and earth, she will be able to possess perfect heaven and earth fortune. Looking at the powerful people in the entire 9 realms, it seems that only a few people can achieve this. After Luo Qinghuan swallowed the Dao fruit, Su Ye asked her to sit cross-legged and feel the creation of heaven and earth. What happens after you feel it? In a sec. I understand. The girl nodded slightly. Immediately. Sit cross-legged. Spirit qi surges in her delicate body, and she begins to sense the creation of heaven and earth. Seeing this, Su Ye did not hesitate at all. He directly tampered with the creation of heaven and earth and directly activated the law of death to integrate a wisp of the breath of the law of death into the creation of heaven and earth. In my mind, the system sound also sounded. The host has successfully invested. Reward, Divine Rank Martial Arts Death Annihilation Finger. Outside the Tower of Heaven and Earth. Accompanied by a series of roaring sounds. Everyone only heard rumbles of thunder in the sky, followed by dark clouds, and a special aura between heaven and earth emerged above the tower of creation of heaven and earth. This is... The eyes of the ministers of the gods' court were full of confusion. The energy of heaven and earth. Aside. Dityen looked solemn and spoke slowly. The energy of heaven and earth. Could it be the creation of heaven and earth that can be comprehended in the creation realm? The gods were shocked at the minister. Many of them are also above the realm of creation, but they have not been able to successfully comprehend the creation of heaven and earth when they were in the realm of creation, so they can only be regarded as fake realms. This was the first time they had seen someone who could truly seize the fortune of heaven and earth in the realm of creation. Then Miss Luo, are you trying to seize the fortune of heaven and earth now? That's right. Dityen nodded and then sighed. The fortune of heaven and earth can be transformed into a cultivator's means to help the cultivator become invincible with the same realm. I didn't expect that Miss Luo could also seize the fortune of heaven and earth. However, if you think about it carefully, it is normal for someone who can enter the legendary 10th floor to seize the fortune of heaven and earth. The creation of heaven and earth. Could it be that Dao fruit? But isn't that Dao fruit of good fortune still not ripe? Dilaner frowned slightly. She knew that Luo Qinghuan had bought a Dao fruit, but that Dao fruit was not yet ripe. She did not expect that Miss Luo could seize the fortune of heaven and earth without that Dao fruit. So why did she take the photo of Dao fruit? Really? She doesn't understand the world of rich women. Boom. Boom. There were constant thunder and dark clouds all over the place. The aura of creation above heaven and earth became increasingly rich, causing all the powerful men from the divine dynasty to drool. What a pity. These auras of good fortune were caused by Luo Qinghuan and no one else could interfere. The fortune of heaven and earth has appeared. Next, let's see how much of the fortune of heaven and earth Miss Luo can seize. Dityen looked over, ready to wait and see. If I remember correctly, Father, you are also a true strong man in the realm of creation, right? Then when you were in the realm of creation, how much of the fortune of heaven and earth did you seize? Dilaner asked curiously on the side. As soon as these words came out, all the gods immediately looked at the minister, also full of curiosity. This is the emperor. Emperor Tian frowned, and after a moment's silence, he said, the fortune of heaven and earth is extremely difficult to seize. After all, it is tainted by the way of heaven. It is not something that cultivators like us can seize whenever we want. This emperor only has less than 40% of it. 40%? Your Majesty, 40% is pretty strong. Hearing this, a group of ministers of the divine dynasty immediately began to flatter him. Then Father, how much of this heaven and earth's fortune can we take away at most? You can take up to 100% of the fortune of heaven and earth. Possessing 100% of the fortune of heaven and earth is called perfect fortune of heaven and earth. Dityen said slowly. Perfect creation of heaven and earth. Dilaner and a group of divine dynasty ministers looked at each other in surprise. Dityen is a great emperor who has undergone 6 tribulations. He is the most prodigy in the entire 9 realms. However, despite this, he can only barely seize 40% of the fortune of heaven and earth. So, is there anyone who can really achieve this perfect level of creation? Since ancient times, only 3 people in the entire 9 regions have been able to do this. It seems like he knows what everyone is thinking. Dityen said slowly. 3. Everyone's pupil shrank. I didn't expect that in this world, there are actually 3 people who can do this. What kind of monster is this? The first one is the most powerful leader in the God realm today, the Chaos Great Emperor, and the second one is the Opening Heaven Great Emperor. And the third one? Everyone has heard of these 2 names. After all, they are both famous ancient gods. This makes everyone even more curious about who can keep pace with these 2 famous ancient gods. As for the third one, it was tens of thousands of years ago. His name was Great Emperor. Speaking of this, even Dityen's eyes showed a deep awe. The name of the fierce bandit once shocked the entire Tianxian 9 regions. The Great Emperor. Dilaner and others were shocked. Although this title is not as good as the previous 2, it inexplicably makes everyone's heart tremble. The first 2 probably won't do anything to them. But the latter will really ask you to borrow things when they meet them. Now I wonder how much of the good fortune of heaven and earth Miss Luo can seize. Dityen said. He looked up at the tower of creation of heaven and earth, and everyone else's eyes followed suit. This is... Just at this moment, when the rich creation of heaven and earth emerged, an object transformed from an instrument suddenly appeared in the sky. It was like a huge bag, constantly packing all the creation of heaven and earth. That is The transformation of Miss Luo's instrument? It seems that Miss Luo is about to start seizing the fortune of heaven and earth. Emperor Tian looked at him with an extremely solemn gaze. But why do I feel that this huge bag is a little strange? Yes. It's neither a heaven burial bag nor a storage bag. Could it be some powerful spirit weapon? A number of ministers of the divine dynasty also agreed. His eyes fell on the strange bag and his brows furrowed. Don't you think it looks like a sack? At this moment, Delanner said weakly. Sack. Emperor Tian and all the ministers of the divine dynasty were stunned. Yes. Don't you think so? As Delanner spoke, she suddenly took out a sack from her storage ring and shook it. Everyone looked at him and their mouth corners twitched. Like. They are quite similar. So that means Miss Luo is now using a sack to seize the fortune of heaven and earth? What the hell? Chapter 98. At this moment, De Tian and a group of ministers of the Wuji divine dynasty looked at each other with their mouths twitching. Use a sack to seize the fortune of heaven and earth. Is this okay for riding a horse? Boom. Just when everyone was stunned. In the sky, as the sack emitted an astonishing suction force, more and more creations of heaven and earth were packed up and taken away. FK. What grade of sack is this? How can it hold so much? Seeing this scene, Minister Su couldn't help but exclaimed. A group of divine dynasty ministers standing by couldn't help but nodded in agreement. It's not that sack that can hold it, it's Miss Luo that can hold it. De Tian shook his head. After he finished speaking, he looked at De Yun and the other person and said, De Yun, Lanner, you two should watch carefully. Perhaps you will gain some enlightenment and realize your own destiny. Yes, father. The two nodded. Now it depends on how much good fortune Miss Luo can seize. De Tian murmured and looked over. Everyone's eyes followed and looked over. As time goes by, the meaning of creation in the sky was also constantly being swallowed by the sack. Your Majesty, Miss Luo has already seized 10% of the fortune of heaven and earth. Your Majesty, Miss Luo has already seized 20% of the fortune of heaven and earth. Your Majesty. Shut up. This emperor can see it. The corner of De Tian's mouth twitched, and he glared at the old minister fiercely. But Your Majesty, I am the historian in charge of recording. The old minister held the small notebook in his hand, looking aggrieved. This happened in his Wuji divine dynasty, how could he not record it? Emperor Tian. He held his forehead helplessly. Then keep your voice down. Yes, Your Majesty. After the historian finished speaking, he began to write quickly. Your Majesty, why does it feel like the spirit qi around the entire heaven and earth creation tower has been swept away under Miss Luo's sack? The historian asked in astonishment. Since we are seizing the fortune of heaven and earth, it is normal to accidentally seize some of the surrounding spirit qi. De Tian waved his hand, looking nonchalant. Your Majesty, Miss Luo's sack is aimed at our divine kingdom's treasury, and many spirit stones have flown out and entered the sack. The historian said again. It's the creation of heaven and earth. The spirit stone is also made of the spirit qi of heaven and earth. It's normal that they have the same origin. De Tian still looked unconcerned, as his Wuji divine dynasty had plenty of spirit stones. Your Majesty, the suction force from Miss Luo's sack has sucked your concubines up to the sky, but fortunately, they were able to escape after discarding some jewelry to reduce the weight. De Tian. How does this feel? Miss Luo, is this sack capturing too many targets? But Emperor Tian looked up at the sky with a serious gaze. Unexpectedly, at this moment, more than half of the good fortune of heaven and earth that originally spread across the sky had been lost without him noticing, and only a small amount was still resisting. But resistance seemed futile. Boom. With the last bit of the creation of heaven and earth condensing, it turned into a giant golden dragon, bearing its fangs and claws as if trying to break free from the sack. But as the pitch-black sack was pulled down, completely covering the last ray of heaven and earth's creation, it seemed that everything was settled. The dark clouds gradually dissipated. The loud thunder gradually dissipated. It's over. See this scene. Everyone in the Wuji divine dynasty was stunned for a moment, then heaved a long sigh of relief. Call. It's finally over. If it wasn't over soon, they all felt that Miss Luo's sack would be aimed at their storage ring. But Your Majesty, how much of the good fortune of heaven and earth has Miss Luo seized at this time? Everyone's eyes fell on De Tian standing aside, and they asked hurriedly. The sky is empty, without even a trace of the creation of heaven and earth. What do you think it is? Emperor Tian looked solemnly as he glanced at the sky. This. Could it be? Is it 100%? Hearing this, everyone looked at the sky, which was cleaner than their faces, and their faces changed drastically, and they took a breath of cold air. However, Tian did not answer them, but stared at the 10th floor. When a cultivator seizes the fortune of heaven and earth, it will cause strange phenomena in heaven and earth. Based on the strange phenomena caused, one can accurately judge how much of the fortune of heaven and earth he has seized. Boom! At this time, 10 dazzling golden rays appeared in the sky, like 10 suns. 10 golden rays. Perfect creation of heaven and earth. This. Now, when seeing those 10 dazzling golden rays, even Tian, who was a great emperor, couldn't remain calm. His face was filled with deep shock. He took a deep breath and even stuttered when he spoke. Perfect creation of heaven and earth. Just a few minutes ago, only 3 people had reached the entire Tianxian 9 regions. And these 3 people are all well-known strong men. But now, 3 people became 4, and a person who had seized the perfect fortune of heaven and earth appeared before their eyes. This is enough to shock the ages and shake the entire Tianxian 9 regions. You can imagine. At this moment, Tian was shocked. Hiss! What, perfect destiny! Miss Luo has become the 4th person since ancient times, now. All the ministers of the divine dynasty were also extremely shocked, with turbulent waves in their hearts. Even the historian was so frightened that he couldn't hold the pen. Miss Luo is a friend who is definitely worthy of my close friendship with the kingdom of God. Tian narrowed his eyes, then quickly reacted and looked at everyone present, His Imperial Majesty looming over him. This matter must not be spread outside. If anyone dares to spread it, I will be the first one to kill him. The appearance of a prodigy who had seized the perfect fortune of heaven and earth was enough to cause a sensation throughout the 9 realms. At the same time, it will also bring some disasters. Yes. Everyone nodded heavily. When the vision disappeared, everyone thought it was over. Suddenly, the might of the great emperor burst out from the 10th floor. FK. Miss Luo, could it be that she absorbed the good fortune of heaven and earth and became a great emperor directly? Seeing this scene, the gods twitched the minister's mouth sharply. That's not the case. This great emperor's aura is different from Miss Luo's aura. Tian shook his head and looked at the 10th floor solemnly, wondering, however, how could there be such a terrifying great emperor aura on the 10th floor? Just when Tian was confused. Suddenly, the 10th floor courtyard became nothingness. In the eyes of everyone, they only saw a young girl sitting cross-legged, and then an extremely huge figure appeared above the sky. He was dressed in black and had a tall and majestic figure. This is the aura of the rank 9 great emperor, and this black clothing. Could it be? Is that being? Tian's pupil shrank. Other great emperors are all dressed in white with immortal qi fluttering in the wind. But there was only one great emperor who wore only black. He is the gangster great emperor. Someone once asked him curiously why he only wore black clothes. The fierce great emperor just smiled faintly. What do you know? If I were to wear black, steal the treasure in the dark, and then run away, would you be able to see me clearly? Chapter 99. I have heard that when Senior Shenbing built the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower, he invited the fierce bandit great emperor to enter and give it a try. As for the result, I have no idea. But there is indeed a record of the 10th floor on that stone pillar. Is it possible? The person who climbed to the 10th floor is actually the great emperor himself. The opportunity left on the 10th floor was actually left by the fierce bandit great emperor. Tian frowned and couldn't help but guess. As soon as Emperor Tian said this. For a while, everyone present was even more curious about what kind of opportunity Miss Luo could get. Under the watchful eyes of the public, the figure in black slowly stretched out his hand, as if stroking the head of the girl who was sitting cross-legged, and then the figure gradually disappeared. What does this mean? See this scene. All the ministers of the gods' court showed doubts. Is this great emperor a pervert? He touched Miss Luo's head and took advantage of her. De Yuner asked innocently, already prepared to be scolded by her father. As expected. As soon as these words came out, Tian rolled his eyes. He shook his head and explained, the great emperor touched her head. This is that existence teaching Miss Luo the great emperor's perception again. In other words, when Miss Luo cultivates to the Emperor realm, it will be easier for her to become a great emperor. What? Everyone in the God dynasty gasped. It turns out that the senior left this opportunity on the 10th floor. It's a pity that my divine dynasty has no chance to obtain it. It's useless even if we are given the chance. Dityan sighed. Upon hearing this, everyone in the divine dynasty, including De Yun, lowered their heads in shame. Father, you have only just entered the 9th floor. However, Delaner didn't buy it at all. She was determined to reorganize the government. She curled her lips and snorted. Emperor Tian. And at this moment, when the tall figure disappeared, the girl was also enveloped by the light and returned to the 9th floor. The host has tampered with the creation of heaven and earth, and the law of death has been integrated into his creation. Now Luo Qinghuan can control some of the death energy, condense it into his own attack, and add the word death mark. Death energy will gradually accumulate, but once the word death becomes completely solid, it will be doomed to die. Luo Qinghuan has gained the great emperor's enlightenment. At this time, in Su Yi's mind, the system voice kept ringing. Death. What a devilish fate of death. When seeing the introduction of this death mark, even Su Yi couldn't help but take a breath and sigh. Call. Su Yi, how is it? Did I succeed? And at this time, the girl slowly opened her tightly closed eyes and asked Su Yi expectantly. Feel it for yourself. Su Yi laughed. Immediately, Luo Qinghuan couldn't wait to feel her own fortune. When she slowly raised her slender fingers, a wisp of black air emerged along with her spiritual luck, and slowly condensed into a faint black word death. This is death mark. Su Yi said, and slowly explained the function of the death mark to the girl. The word death is superimposed? A situation where death is inevitable. That's amazing. This is also something you helped me realize, Su Yi. Luo Qinghuan's beautiful eyes were full of stars. If you admire your brother yet, you can say it out loud. Su Yi crossed his arms and said with a smile. No. The girl pouted and shook her head firmly. If she told this, that stinky guy would definitely laugh at her. All right. Girl Luo, while all the spirit chi in the tower is gathered here, you should practice well first. Anyway, you can go to the Wuji Emperor's mausoleum at any time, and the spirit chi here cannot be wasted. Su Yi said with a smile. Good. Luo Qinghuan nodded slightly. That's right. Things around you can be stored in the storage ring. At this time, Su Yi reminded again. Things around. The girl was stunned. Looked around. Instantly the little face became extremely wonderful. Spirit stone, various jewelry and other things appeared on the ground around. Where are these from? When you seized the fortune of heaven and earth, your brother Ye also took it away. Su Ye said with a smile. They have all taken away the fortune of heaven and earth. Wouldn't it be reasonable to grab something else? Girl, Ovo. All right. We really came to Wuji Divine Dynasty to purchase these. Immediately, she quietly put them away and began to practice. With all the spirit chi from the heaven and earth creation tower gathering here, plus the large pile of spirit stones in her storage ring, the girl's aura gradually rose at this moment. Outside the tower of heaven and earth. Hey! Why hasn't Miss Luo come out yet? Everyone in the Divine Dynasty is still waiting for Luo Qinghuan to come out of the tower of creation of heaven and earth. After all, they all want to see this fourth person who has seized the perfect creation of heaven and earth since ancient times. But it's a pity that I haven't seen him for a long time. Miss Luo should be practicing inside, so let's not disturb her. Wait until she comes out, then take her to the Wuji Emperor's mausoleum. Dityan shook his head. Yes. Your Majesty. All the ministers of the Divine Dynasty nodded. When they heard Dityan say that whether Luo Qinghuan repaired the heaven and earth creation tower or not, he would be allowed to enter the Wuji Emperor's mausoleum, they were somewhat opposed. But now they are raising their hands and feet in support. If it really doesn't work, it's okay to pack up a few ancestors and give them to Miss Luo. After all, he is the fourth person to seize the perfect fortune of heaven and earth, so he must hold on to this thigh tightly. Su Yet, hug Luo's thigh? You should just hug your brother Yi's hairy thigh. Call. Without my permission, no one is allowed to enter the heaven and earth creation tower during this period. Do not disturb Miss Luo. Emperor Tian breathed a sigh of relief. First, he did not want anyone to disturb Luo Qinghuan, and second, He was going to enter the lava underground and use the heaven and earth creation tower and his own emperor flame to strengthen the seal on the strange severed finger. Yes. When the crowd dispersed, Dityen took a step forward and appeared again under the lava ground. Looking at the severed finger covered by the emperor's flame, he frowned, a hint of fear flashed in his eyes, and then he used the emperor's flame to control the tower of creation of heaven and earth to tighten the seal on the severed finger again. Looking at the sealing formations that kept appearing on the severed finger and the severed finger that was no longer moving, Dityen finally breathed a sigh of relief. It's finally over. Get everything done. His figure disappeared again from under the lava. However, as his figure just left, the imperial flame on the severed finger dimmed a little. The Tower of Creation of Heaven and Earth. 9th floor. While the girl was practicing in seclusion, Suya was not idle either, reading the divine rank exercises awarded by the system investment. The Death and Silence Finger. It's a pity that with my current strength, it's difficult to fully exert the power of this divine rank technique. If there is a carrier, perhaps I can still exert it a little bit. Suya frowned. Suddenly, he seemed to have noticed something and looked down. This familiar force seems to be below. Chapter 100. Below? Do you mean under the ground? There seemed to be an extremely hot flame under the ground, blocking his perception. The Emperor Flame of Emperor Tian. Suya frowned, sighed, and gave up. His current strength is only at the great power level, and the underground is protected by Ditian's Emperor Flame. With his current strength, it is difficult for him to ignore these Emperor Flames. But this also proves it even more. There is indeed something fishy going on underground. In the blink of an eye. A few days passed. With a grieved whimper from the Heaven and Earth Creation Tower, all the spirit chi returned to the body of the girl on the 9th floor. When the officials guarding the Tower of Creation of Heaven and Earth saw this scene, people are just stunned. It can be said that the Tower of Creation of Heaven and Earth has stood in their Wuji divine dynasty for thousands of years. There has never been a situation where an entire tower has been drained dry. 9th floor. Call. Suya, I'm done. The girl stretched lazily, revealing her perfect, almost perfect body. Then she slowly opened her bright eyes, exhaled lightly, and felt the strong energy in her body. The girl's beautiful eyes were filled with excitement. It was the first time for her to practice so happily. What a pity. It just consumes a bit of spirit chi and spirit stone. Most of the spirit stone I got from Senior Dityen has been used. Suya just said silently, you can't just pluck the wool once, and there may not be only one sheep. The girl's eyes gradually lit up. What Stinky Suya said makes sense. Luo Qinghuan has broken through to the 5th star of the creation realm. The host's strength has been fed back, and has broken through to the 5-star level of great power. In Suyi's mind, the system sounded. Suya yawned. He had a breakthrough just by lying down for a few days? It's comfortable not having to practice on your own. Alright. Girl Luo, let's go. It's time to let this heaven and earth creation tower rest for a few days. The girl nodded, stood up and left. When Luo Qinghuan came out of the heaven and earth creation tower, the guarding officer immediately came to greet her respectfully. Miss Luo, I have notified the 4th princess to come and pick you up. Once the 4th princess arrives, Miss Luo can go to the Wuji Emperor's mausoleum. Yes, thank you. Luo Qinghuan nodded slightly and said something in a low voice. Miss Luo, you are too polite. The guard officer waved his hand slightly, looking at the sweet smile on the girl's pretty face. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart that Miss Luo was so kind and a good person. Soon, Delaner, wearing a leather jacket and holding a long whip, rushed over. When she saw Luo Qinghuan coming out of the heaven and earth creation tower, Delaner's eyes suddenly lit up, full of awe. Wow! Miss Luo, you finally came out. Amazing! Not only did I reach the legendary 10th floor, but I also gained the great Emperor's epiphany. More importantly, it was perfect. Woohoo! Speaking of this, Delaner quickly covered her mouth. Wrong. Father doesn't allow us to talk about this. Anyway, it's all right, Miss Luo, as long as you understand it. Luo Qinghuan certainly knew what she was talking about. Perfect creation of heaven and earth. Zhou Suya said that she was the 4th person in the Tianxian 9 regions to seize the perfect fortune of heaven and earth, and the one before her was Zhou Suya. She didn't think her perfect destiny was that great. After all, it was because of Suya that she had the upgraded Destiny Deo fruit. She only needed to take 50% to achieve perfection. It seems so. Stinky Suya is pretty powerful. Relying on oneself, one can achieve the perfect creation of heaven and earth. The Stinky Suya is really strong. It was just luck. The girl shook her head. As soon as these words came out, Delaner and the tower guard beside her looked at the girl with a look of excitement. Woo woo. Miss Luo is so strong, yet she is still so humble. I cried Maya off. Miss Luo, come with me. I will take you to the Imperial Mausoleum. Delaner said to Luo Qinghuan. The girl nodded slightly. The two of them walked all the way to the depths of the palace. This is a deep forest with towering ancient trees standing here. When the two of them came over, they saw Dityen and Diyun had been waiting here for a long time. Senior Dityen. Diyun fellow deist. Luo Qinghuan smiled at the two of them, and at this moment, Diyun saw that the strong fighting spirit in the girl's eyes had disappeared without a trace. Originally, he wanted to find an excuse to compete with her. But now it seems that this is completely unnecessary. Discussing and looking for a fight are two different things. Otherwise, he would really become the masochist that fourth sister calls him. Miss Luo, congratulations. This is the fourth person since ancient times. Even this emperor admires him very much. Dityen looked at this and couldn't help but sigh. Senior Dityen, you're joking. It's just luck. Luo Qinghuan shook his head. Luck is also a kind of strength. Dityen took a look at the powerful aura of the girl and sighed. In just a few days, Miss Luo's strength has improved again. It seems that the number one young person in the desolate sky realm will definitely be Miss Luo in the future. Is there any progress? Aside. Diyun was stunned. What the hell? Will cultivation improve your abilities? When he first met Luo Qinghuan, she was weaker than him, but after not seeing her for a while, the girl's strength became stronger and stronger. Could it be that Miss Luo will become a great emperor in a while? Alright. Miss Luo, are you ready to enter the Wuji Emperor's mausoleum? The girl's eyes lit up and she nodded. Hey. Stock up and start. Well. Miss Luo, your sack fell off. Dityen glanced at the girl whose eyes were full of stars and said silently. The girl picked it up silently, turned her head slightly and whistled. Dityen was shocked. Broke in. This girl really came to my Wuji Divine Dynasty to purchase goods. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.